It's Premier League prediction times. Well, it's actually time to review our predictions from earlier in the season. And let me tell you, whilst this is a long episode, you'll probably spend most of the time laughing at the rubbish that we come out with. This is Talk of the Trinity.
Hello and welcome to this international edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett, and if you've been wondering the last few weeks, Baz and Will, they're not in the same place. What's going on? You know, there's only so much we can take of their individual tones. Worry not, for in a dramatic epic for the ages, like the final act in a Hollywood film, I am reunited. Not just via the power of online recording programs of your choice, in person, by Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest.
Bonjour, hola, ciao bella, konnichiwa, alright bab.
International.
You can see that Will has just flown back from Italy. He's been let off the bus after time of recording. We are recording after England beat Italy 2-1 in the first game of the Euro 2024 qualification stages. And a little taster of what we are going to talk about in this episode of Talk of the Trinity is summed up. 2 hours before the game, I was having a conversation about the upcoming game at that point, and I was asked for my prediction, and I said, and I pretty much quote myself, England have got no chance of winning 2-0 Italy. But a place where you can always rely upon 100% accuracy is the Twitter page at Talk Trinity, keeping you up to date with all of the latest Villa news, rumours, gossip. There's a poll, very often a poll. So get yourself, that is where you need to go for all the latest Villa news. You can check out past episodes of the podcast on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity, or like this one. This one is an audio version. If you just like the audio tones, then you can go to our audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. We are also on FanHub. So, as alluded to there, it's International Week, so we're going to talk about the Premier League, of course. That is the only logical thing to talk about during International Week, apart from well done, Harry Kane, for breaking the record. Never doubted that you would put that penalty in the back of the net, because when have you missed an important penalty? But we are revisiting, we are going back beyond the World Cup, pre-World Cup, to our Premier League pre-season predictions, because you will remember that we did a show before the season started. It was before the season started.
Yeah, it took all weekend.
Yeah, it was quite the epic, whereby we predicted who we thought was going to win the league, qualify for the Champions League, get relegated, stay up. We even threw in a few predictions about who would come up from the Championship, who'd win the various cup competitions. Top scorer, the golden boot, the most golden of those boots. Playmakers, we threw absolutely everything in there. Mm-hmm. And we are going to look back at those predictions to see how well they have aged. And in the perfect summary of, I suppose, nothing better than idiots never learn, we are going to predict from now what we think is going to happen in the rest of the Premier League season. But instead of having to wait 5-6 months to be proved wrong, we'll be proved wrong probably in about 2 months, based on some previous predictions. Getting straight back into it, some have aged well, it's fair to say. Some have aged not very well. So we're going to start at the top in terms of top predictions, but also the top of the Premier League. Because way back when the season was just a glint in our eyes, we split the Premier League table into groups of 5 and we went through it from top to bottom, and we're going to do the same again because, as I said, we have not learned our lesson. So, top 5 of the Premier League, we had pretty much the same picks apart from 5th place. We both said City would win the league, Liverpool to come 2nd, Spurs to come 3rd, Arsenal to come 4th.
My days.
You had United 5th,
Yep.
and I had Chelsea 5th.
Yep.
So, in terms of the pick where we differed, the 5th place pick, at time of recording, Man United are 3rd. So they were in that top 5, so they made it into your bracket.
Yeah.
And Chelsea are 10th. Things have happened at Chelsea. You may recall that I regaled about how great a manager Tommy Tuchel was.
Bayern Munich seem to think so.
I still think he's a good manager, but he didn't really get very much of a chance to prove it at Chelsea. And because I respect Graham Potter, I'm not going to comment at all on his managerial abilities or otherwise. But Chelsea are playing Villa next, and you will hear more about Graham Potter and Chelsea in our preview episode of that game coming out before that game. Could be next week, depending on how eager you are listening to this podcast over the international weekend. So, we both had City winning the league. They are 2nd, so not a million miles away. Liverpool, 6 at time of recording.
Feels like a million miles away after their season, doesn't it? I mean, don't get me wrong. They've got bragging rights over the greatest derby in English football, bore off Man United, Liverpool for the next 100 years, haven't they? After 8 shots on target, 7 went in. Oh, mate, someone's paid David De Gea off there.
Efficient. And to be fair, any game involving Liverpool where the home team scores 7 goals, I'm always very keen to talk about. But yeah, I think in terms of Liverpool this season, we didn't predict how much they would fall in terms of their flow. Yeah, basically. Still with a shot. There is a shot, I would say, at time recording. They are 7 points behind the Champions League places with 2 games in hand. So we're going to throw our hand in a moment to see, do either of us think Liverpool are going to qualify for the Champions League? But so far, bit of a disaster, could be retrieved. Yeah. Which is pretty much what we say about each one of these podcasts we record. Always room for retrieving. But Spurs, we both had them 3rd. They're 4th at time recording, so not on the paper a million miles away, but based on what's happening off the field at time of recording, where Antonio Conte has pretty much done everything in his power to get sacked, even though his contract's up in 2 months and it's pretty much known he's not staying anyway. He's that determined to get sacked.
Oh,
he's going to be doing everything.
Like a pantomime.
Yeah. Absolute roller coaster. And in terms of, we talk about Villa and aspirations qualify, for Europe in the first instance, well, top half in the first instance, Europe, try and build that. Spurs in the Champions League this season got to the knockout stages, booed off when they drew at home to AC Milan, and because they needed to go and attack and they didn't. But it's a little how the other half live in terms of we're scrambling around kind of the bottom half of the table and Spurs are getting booed off in the Champions League. I want to be in that position in a few years' time, getting booed off, drawing at home to Milan.
Yeah, but the thing is with that is that you're not allowed to win anything for 20 years because that is the Spurs' way of doing things.
Well, to be fair, we got that ticks off. So we're all ready.
How Antonio Conte just reached down into his tracksuit bottoms and pulled his balls out and put them on the table and went, was shit, basically. Was phenomenal. It's got to be one of the greatest press conferences of the modern era, I would say. It's definitely up there. Yeah, I mean, top 5.
Yeah. I think Jose Mourinho was watching that conference going, a bit much there. And we had Arsenal 4th. they're in that top 5. So we kind of got over the base level of we got them in the right section of the table. They are top at time of recording on a 5-game winning streak, and partly thanks to the back of Emi Martinez's head. But I think it's fair to say, last season they're in a race to come fourth, fell at the last hurdle.
Yeah.
There was a feeling, I think, in terms of, we thought they would get over the line this time, but we were wary about putting them any higher up the table based on their Arsenal-ness. Fair to say that they've beaten expectations so far this season. I think even from an Arsenal perspective, I don't think they would have expected themselves to be this far clear at this stage of the season.
I don't think Arsenal Fan TV have got anything to talk about, have they? Because they thrive on the bubbling toxicity of Arsenal's demise since and including the reign of Arsene Wenger at the end. So, yeah, Arsenal are doing very well, and they've obviously had a clean sweep at the recent awards with Arteta, Odegaard, Saka. I'm sure we'll get onto it at some point as to whether we agree with those. But, yeah, Arsenal doing well. Decent. Not a decent season for them. It's an absolutely amazing season for them.
And they were linked with some players in January. Younger players, didn't get them. Very Arsenal thing, and actually I thought brought some sensible players in January when their first choice weren't available. Jorginho and Trossard. For a January signing, Trossard 20 odd million, Jorginho a bit less than that. They're sensible signings, I would say, and that's not a word you very often associated with Arsenal over the last decade.
I think Trossard has been a great acquisition for him. He has been a really, really good signing, and he's hit the ground running straight away, hasn't he? It's allowed Martinelli to move more centrally, and that's added something different to them because of Gabriel Jesus' long-standing injury. I know he's back now. Jorginho, though, no, not for me. He's very good at skipping prior to a penalty, but I wouldn't have got. I think they could have got better. I think they could have got better players in for where they are, and they probably already had good enough players in and around the squad prior to that.
I think will he be there in 3 years? Probably not. But I think for a squad that wasn't the biggest on numbers and quite a young squad, I think experience-wise, it wasn't. I thought it was pretty decent signing. But of course, if Arsenal don't win the league, that signing will be thrown as an example of playing it safe when they could have gone for an exciting attacking signing. And speaking of playing it safe, we are not going to do that because we're going to dive straight back into the pool that is predicting the rest of the season. And when we did this the first time round, we used what the Sun would probably no doubt call a supercomputer to predict our results. We put them all in.
Lots from the IT crowd.
Yep.
Hello.
To be fair, he rocks that briefcase. And then we got our table at the end. I have gone back to the well to put the predictions in. We talked off air about whether you were going to do the same or whether you were going to do it straight off the top of your head. And you have done both. We're going to do our predictions now and through the rest of the show. Going to give you the choice. Do you want to use the supercomputer that is online, or do you want to use the supercomputer that is the brain of Mr. Trinity?
All right, let me tell you. The supercomputer brain that I've got, I'm gonna lead that just aside. I might run through it at the end to let you know what my 1 to 20 was. But just in the interest of fairness, and because I've got an excuse then, more so if I don't do very well now, I'm going to use the predictor website. You know, same as you, same rules for both of us. I'm happy to go with that, though. I'm not very happy with the outcome.
Yeah,
if I'm honest with you.
Say probably, which explains a lot of things. I wasn't checking my table as I was going along, as I was putting the results in, and just got the table at the end. So talking of excuses, we got one right there, but no excuse time now. We're going to go straight in.
Mate, you sound like what's his name? The old Nathan Jones.
I'll be blaming it. You know, everybody, the cat, the dog, the Illuminati, Jeremy Corbyn, everybody would be getting the blame.
This is just your way. This has been your way for the last 2 years.
This
is the Barrett way.
It is. My way of terrible predictions has been well established. But in a stick or twist scenario, we both had City winning the league at the start of the season. Now the supercomputer's come into play. Have you got City still winning the league?
I have got the blue moon rising to the very top, to the summit, and looking down on the rest of the league because of that man. More than anything else, because of not Jack Grealish either, because of that man, the juggernaut that is Erling Haaland. I mean, we discussed him quite extensively in the previous predictions, and we asked the question of, is he a bargain? And we both said yes, he is a bargain. 50 million for a man who's going to score 300 goals a season.
Yep.
You look at his performance the other night, and I know it's not Premier League, but against RB Leipzig for an hour, the 5 goals he scored, the second one, particularly straight after kick-off, and the running in and heading it when he was about 2 yards behind the defender when the ball hit the bar, is a phenomenon. And I think the thing about Man City here for me is that you look at their starting team at the moment and you look at the business they did in January. Getting rid of João Cancelo was a real head-scratcher, but you can understand why it happened. To think that the likes of Rico Lewis and Nathan Ake are first-choice fullbacks, they're playing these weird and wonderful formations as well. Rodri's turned into an attacking midfielder at points, and Bernardo Silva's dropping in at left-back. And the way he's got, and a lot of people won't agree with this, mainly Villa fans, because of what he was like for us, but the way he's got Jack Grealish playing, they've been phenomenal. And I don't even think that all their players have been really hitting the heights that they could hit. I don't think De Bruyne has been as good as he has been over the last few years, but he hasn't needed to be. Mahrez has been phenomenal in patches. Walker hasn't been as great. Ruben Dias hasn't really. John Stones has picked up again. Foden's done well. Grealish, as I say. But at the start of the season, I think we said Grealish and De Bruyne should be getting high numbers for assists for Haaland alone. And not to mention the Argentinian sensation, Julian Alvarez, who they've got up top as well. Man City, it's going to be a cakewalk for them in the end, I think. And the reason for that is they're the only team in this league who can go, right, we need to win the next 10 games, so let's go and do it. And they'll do it without even like breaking sweat. So for me, City champions.
Yeah, I had City winning the league as well in the updated predictions. I've got it close. I got it tight. Only 2 points with the team who I've got coming second. But I agree with what you said, that in a race to the end, City have demonstrated that they can wheel off a 10-game winning streak. Liverpool did as well, but even if Liverpool had 10 more games to win the season than everybody else, they wouldn't be winning the league this year. So I do think that is going to come into it. And I think the game that is going to... It's not the last game of the season, but City have got Arsenal at home.
Yeah.
I think City will win. And I think that's going to be the difference come the end of the season in the points reckoning.
Do you remember what you put down as the score in that match?
I think I probably had it 2-1 City. I think that is a type of prediction that I would put.
I had 3-1 City. I think they're just going to absolutely smash the rest of this season. Arsenal, unfortunately, they're going to drop points, and I think that they'll break some of their other hoodoos. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I mean Liverpool at Anfield, I think they'll beat them at Anfield, which they don't tend to do. But you got to worry about them really. They just don't have. I think the problem for them is that they don't have the experience that Man City have.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big difference. And I think in terms of... I don't think Arsenal are going to collapse or lose 3 or 4 games, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the only game they lost during the course of the rest of the season was against Man City. But I think they got Newcastle away. I can see them drawing that type of game, and then
Chelsea at home.
Yeah, and that's it. That is the margin that you get against a City team coming off the rails. Haaland, kind of coming from 2 yards behind. So it doesn't need Arsenal, to be terrible and kind of Newcastle under Kevin Keegan kind of collapse at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple of games and that's it. And
I mean, I've got 3-point difference as well between the two, and I take it that you've got Arsenal coming second.
Yeah, I've got 2 points gap. I've got Arsenal coming second. Yeah, and
Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, it's in terms of, I don't think it's because Arsenal, I've only got Arsenal losing 4 games, so it's not as though I think they're going to be terrible. It's just more to do with City.
I've only got them losing the one to City, but I've got them drawing against the likes of Chelsea and Newcastle away, beating Liverpool away, getting some good results. I think that they'll start to ship some goals as well against some teams. Brighton at home, I think they'll ship a couple of goals against them. I've got Man City on 92 points, Arsenal on 89. My third place team are they're left well behind. They're like dragging onto the car with their lifeless bodies in the title race. But is second a good season for Arsenal in the grand scheme of things with how well they've been doing up until this point, where they're top of the league by a good 5 or 8 points at the moment.
It's 8 points having played a game more.
Is this a good season now for them, or is this a capitulation?
I think at the start of the season, if you would have offered them second, they would have taken it. And as we've touched upon, I don't think it is going to be a collapse from them. But the way the press are going to portray it is, you collapsed, you couldn't deal with the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the nature of our press, really. I think they'll be more, well, maybe not more disappointed, but the way they went out in the Europa League, disappointing, losing to Sporting
That goal
on penalties. That's more of a kicker, because in terms of, you can point to a particular incident where you're like, if that wouldn't happen, we would have won. Whereas I think in the league, it's going to be City were just too good. I mean, in terms of last season, when Liverpool, City, they won like 10 games in a row each, didn't they? And it's like, from Liverpool perspective, it's like, well, we couldn't do any more. I mean, they literally couldn't do any more, but I think it'd be the same for Arsenal. I wouldn't call it a failure if they only lose 1 more game. If they lose 6 more, then you could say, yeah.
I mean, from a Man City and Arsenal point of view, and with all the other teams that there are as well, who have been the standout players for, I want just one player per team, stand out, and it can either be stand out because they've been phenomenal or stand out because they've been absolutely crap and you expected a lot more. I mean, Man City for me, it's got to be Haaland. I don't think it can be anybody else. And from an Arsenal point of view, you've got to go with, I mean, as good as Odegaard's been and Saliba and the rest of them, I'd be saying Saka. I think Saka's been their best player this season.
Yeah, I would agree in terms of not quite following on, but after the Euros and missing the penalty, that could have had an impact on a player who, really kind of crushing their career, or maybe not quite hitting the heights that perhaps you would have expected to prior to such a big event. But no, he's kept getting better and better, and I think in terms of for England as well, in terms of I think the France quarter-final in the World Cup that we've mentioned, it was great in that game, and it's very good for Arsenal, as you said. So, I mean, very good news from an Arsenal perspective, because you'd think in terms of, funny enough, the only team you'd worry about him going to is City. You'd probably think it in the Premier League, but from an England perspective, with Euro 2024 on the horizon, him in form, good news for us in terms of, because we need all our top players in top form to have any chance of winning that trophy, I think. And he's, as you say, I would put him as their player of the season. Yeah. Jesus had a good start, but then got injured. I think picked him as a good signing for them, and I think he had proved that even despite being out for a few months. But yeah, they got some good young players, and he's cream of the crop.
Mate, he's been great. He has been great. But that's enough about those two.
Yep.
That's enough about those two. We've got 3 more teams to pick for this top 5 because unless you don't know maths, guys, 2 + 3 = 5.
That's why you listen to us.
5, yes, 5. So, we both had Spurs, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah. Conte probably would have been happy with that. He'd probably have asked for a trophy to be put up in the cabinet.
Yep.
Still got Spurs.
Nope.
No.
Funny that. I'll do a spoiler alert. I haven't got them in my top 5 anymore.
Oh, my days. What a fall from grace. All right, then. Do you want to go first or shall I go first for our 3rd place, the bronze medal?
I'll throw mine in third in terms of, because I didn't have them in the top 5. I've done a swap in terms of a team who Spurs were in my top 5 and no longer in my top 5. Man United weren't in my top 5 at the start of the season, and I've got them 3rd now. I mean, in terms of, as you say, I've got them comfortably behind 2nd by 10 points on my calculation. I think in terms of the game you mentioned, losing away at Liverpool demonstrates they're not a title winning team. Also demonstrated by the fact neither of us got on winning the title. Progress has been made, but they're still a few steps away. But I think in terms of the big thing for United this season for them is that they've never been very far away from a crisis in the last few years, and there's always been a feeling of the guy in charge hasn't got a clue, or the team hasn't got a clear tactical plan or identity. And in Ten Hag, they've got a manager who I'd say pretty much near unanimous. The fans are, they like him. I mean, they weren't saying that at the end of August after they got banged 4-0 at Brentford or whatever it was. But to be fair, he sorted them out after that. I think in terms of getting rid of Ronaldo, I think was a big positive.
He had to.
For United. At least we could say one of the few teams who have beaten United since like October have been Villa, so shout out to us. But yeah, it reminds me a bit of a few seasons ago. I think United, they came 2nd under Mourinho.
His greatest achievement, apparently, ever, is what he said. That's my greatest ever achievement, was getting Man United 2nd.
Yeah, from recollection, they were nowhere near winning the title. Well, that was kind of, this is brilliant, a great achievement. Just because, from United perspective, just anything they were looking to cling on to. Similar-ish to that in terms of for United this season. Rashford coming back to form is a big boost for them, and Ten Hag has to take a large amount of the credit for that. They played their usual lottery game of pin the tail on the ageing striker in the January transfer window, bringing in Morton, Weghorst. Yeah, I mean, in terms of, they seem a long way behind Man City, but after what's happened at United the last few years, is coming 3rd going to make any difference to them next season? Probably not, based on history. It's more going to be affected by what's going on off the field in terms of the sale rumours and preferred bidders and preferred bidders to whoever's coming in. That's going to have a bigger impact on United than coming 3rd in the league. But they won a trophy at time recording. They won the League Cup. First time in 5 years. Similar to Mourinho won the League Cup. I think that was his first trophy at United. They're still in the Europa Liga.
Yeah.
So if they win that follows the Mourinho path.
They've got Sevilla though, haven't they? So
yeah.
Sorry about that.
85 times winners of the trophy Sevilla. So yeah, it's progress. And they've done well not to get worse, I suppose. But I think it's a season where other teams have kind of, United have done, they've done well, so, they're obviously better than they were a year ago, I think. But as we'll probably no doubt touch upon as we go down the table, a lot of the teams have shot themselves in the foot and got worse, kind of in that category of the table. But yeah, I had United 3rd.
Well, in a strange universe that we find ourselves in, I too have got Manchester United 3rd. Though I will point out that in our predictions, I said that I thought that Ten Hag would do a very good job and they get top 5 because I had them 5th.
Yep.
He's done that. He's brought in good players. It's taken a while, you know, the talk of Martinez being too small, and yet now he's like bossing it for him, doing very well. Some strange decisions at times you think with some of the matches, the back-to-back games against Leeds where they had Luke Shaw at centre-back partnering the likes of Harry Maguire and Valencia at left-back, and you sort of think, what on earth are you doing? Then last 15 minutes he goes to the proper foot positions for people and they go and smash him. It was rather strange, but I think you're right. With Man United, they've found a groove. They're doing well. Every now and again, I would say every now and again they have a bit of a stumble, but Liverpool was more than a little bit of a stumble, wasn't it? It was an absolute battering. But the Premier League this year is so weird in regards to who can beat who after having fantastic results or getting spanked by like the bottom of someone's shoe type of a thing. Man United for me, they've been very good, and I think that finishing third will be a catalyst for them for next year. I can see them lifting the Europa League. I don't see them getting through the next round of the FA Cup. I think they lose to Brighton in that.
Big shout.
And the player who has done the best for them, as you say, is Marcus Rashford. Would you have Rashford or Saka? That's a great question. I mean, Rashford's just on absolute top form, playing on the wing, scoring as many goals as he is. He's rediscovered himself, hasn't he?
Yeah, they bring different things to the team. I'd say Rashford and Saka.
Oh, yeah.
Rashford's probably, although as you say, he does come from the wing, he's more of a goal-scoring threat than Saka, although Saka's got a couple of goals in him, as we saw recently, unfortunately. But in terms of, I think there's, for Rashford, there was all, kind of mainly tabloid noise over the last couple of years, stick to the football, don't talk about anything else or do anything else. I mean, God forbid anybody at the BBC should talk about anything else.
How dare a young black man go out there and try and help other people and be successful at the same time? It doesn't fit with the propaganda, does it? He's a credit. He's a credit to humanity for all that he's done, but it's good to see him playing very well again because we're talking about football here. He's done brilliantly this season for him. The other player, who I think has been great, not played very much, Garnacho. He's going to be something going forward. Is he the next Ronaldo? I don't think so, but will he be at Man United next season, the year after, or is someone like Real Madrid going to come sniffing round, They say that South American players' ultimate dream is Barca and Madrid.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him go, but I think he needs to lose that blonde barnet first.
What I'd say in terms of Garnacho is, especially in the Fergie era, there was not every single time, but most of the time, if you're a young player, it'd be like, your best chance is at United. And if you go elsewhere, you're not going to reach the top. And it was true most of the time. I mean, Paul Pogba might have something different to say in respect of him, but generally speaking, United was the best place for young players to develop if they were truly going to get to the top. And they're not what they were under Fergie, but they're beginning to get back to that stage for young players. If they're good enough, they'll get a chance in the team. And I do have half a feeling with him that it'd be a bad move for him to leave United at this stage, even if it was to a Real Madrid, as you say. Well, it's them or Barca, isn't it, to win the league? I mean, I suppose you could say over here, well, we were a 2-team league at the top, but I do think it'd be better for him to stay. And you mentioned Ronaldo, he's the perfect, I know, probably 15 years ago now, but still a good example to follow in terms of really learned his craft at Old Trafford, became that player, who everybody thought he would be when he joined as a teenager from Portugal, and then left just went on the next level afterwards.
Mega star, wasn't he, at Real Madrid?
I mean, I think he's a different player to Garnacho. I think in terms of, feeds into the Ronaldo Messi debate, which we'll avoid for the purposes of this podcast. But in terms of natural ability through like sheer graft, and Ronaldo's always been seen as the one on the graft side of things rather than the natural ability. And I think from what I've seen of Garnacho, he's more on the natural ability rather than the grafting. But I think it's a good case study for him to follow, and hopefully there isn't too much talk at agents in the ear of you can make more money elsewhere. I think for United and for him, I'd definitely stay another season at United. But good news for us if he goes. But I'm sure United will get somebody just as good in his place.
Oh yeah,
if he does.
Yeah. But no, for me, Manchester United, this is the start of the revival. I don't like to say I hate the glory Man United stuff. They don't deserve to be just back at the top because of who they are. You deserve to be up there because of how you're doing, But I do think that Erik ten Hag is onto something, and this is going to be a great stepping stone for when he eventually goes to Barcelona as their manager.
Yep, and what a day that will be.
I will laugh.
And that will be another podcast all in itself. But moving on to fourth place, the final Champions League. Well, I say the final Champions League qualification place. There is a scenario this season where fourth won't get Champions League qualification.
This will be the season. Yeah.
Which is if, and it is a big if Man United win the Europa League, which you have suggested that they will, if Chelsea win the Champions League,
yeah,
and they don't come top fourth, which, spoiler alert for what we're going to say in a minute, I don't think either of us going to have Chelsea coming top four. So
you never know.
No, you do never know. But they get automatic group passage Champions League if they win Champions League, even if they're not in the top four. Winner of the Europa League automatically gets into the Champions League. So I think there is a scenario. I think it does Ryan United coming fifth, which we've just discounted. But possibly, in like that Spurs season when they came fourth under Harry Redknapp and didn't get Champions League, I think when...
Didn't it happen to Everton as well? Or did they get into the knockouts for it and they got smashed by Villarreal or something?
If you're asking an Everton fan, it was the ref's fault. In terms of that. But you ask a Liverpool fan, and well, you don't get an answer because they just laugh at you for 5 minutes. But speaking of Liverpool, will I get a laugh for my prediction of fourth? Because I have Liverpool coming fourth. And all I can say as to why I've got them coming fourth is because the supercomputer told me when I put them in. But trying to put more rational thought behind it. Their last game was they lost away at Bournemouth, and the ball that Salah hit 20 yards over the bar is still in orbit.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
But I'm going to go, despite that, Liverpool strikers are going to score enough goals to get them fourth. And I have nothing further to say. But have you got a similarly outlandish prediction for fourth?
Let me tell you, there's only a few things that have ever made me chuckle as much as this. One was hearing about a mate of mine that I used to work with. On the last day of school, you throw egg and flour at other people, or that's what they did. He threw a cream egg, and when he got home, he found out he'd hit his twin sister. Another thing was my dog running up the garden and finding some of the potatoes I lobbed up there that I was meant to peel for my mum.
Nice.
Something about a dog and potatoes. That prediction of four was tickle me. Oh, man. Oh, let me tell you. But
Same for you?
You can, no, not at all. You can laugh as much as you want at my one, but I think it's probably got a better chance of actually happening. And I'm going to say that the Seasiders are going to be very happy that they've got a zebra in charge. Well. I've got Brighton to come fourth. Yeah. I mean, I shot myself with that because I wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Talk about a zebra crossing.
Mate, I'm telling you, Brighton are onto something this season. The fact that they got rid of Graham Potter, but they didn't get rid of him. But Graham Potter left. They brought in a zebra, and they continued that upward trajectory and are doing incredibly well, getting some great results, scoring goals for fun. They've got so many good players that nobody's ever heard of before. Mitoma, Casiedo, you know.
Scouting system, excellent.
Niall Ferguson, whoever Ferguson up front for him, I think that's his name. He's been fantastic. Scored for Ireland the other night as well. I think they're just so adaptable. I think that Brighton will have a very good run of games. I think they'll only finish 6 points behind United. I think they'll be tied with the team that I put fifth on 70 points.
Okay.
But I think that this season will be the pinnacle for them. I think they'll struggle a bit more next year because of having European football.
Yep.
But they've been fantastic, and they've been one of the best teams this season. There's been a host of teams that have been incredibly good.
Yep.
But yeah, for me, Brighton. I mean,
I think if Brighton come fourth, it won't be as everyone ever talking about. It'll be a unicorn in terms of leading them there. But at least we can say you've mentioned another excellent team who we've beat. So at least we can throw that in there. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, it shows how good a job he has done, but also kind of slightly damning praise of Graham Potter, because a few of the players have basically come out and said, we kind of do the same thing that we did under Graham Potter, we just do it better. It's basically just to paraphrase what the interviews say. And I have to say they've done a very good job, as not wishing to go too soppy, sentimental. I'd rather see a team like Brighton doing well, playing football in the inverted commas right way, than having a team who we haven't even talked about yet, spending $1 gazillion to scrape a Champions League place. So if they do come forth, fair play, in terms of there's such a monopoly in terms of those top four Champions League places. So to see it broken, I would be all for. So I haven't got them coming fourth. In terms of the points gap between my third and fourth, I've got 13 points.
Wow.
So I think it's mainly because I think Liverpool are that bad, and I think they're going to scrape over the line. Although I got them at 69, which is only 1 point less than you got Brighton for 70. But I would be happier if your pick is correct.
I think the thing for me with it all, I mean, Brighton, I don't see Brighton really tailing off. I don't think they'll win all their games. I think we'll beat them on the last game, but I think that will be just a case of it being the last game of the season. They've got the FA Cup final to look forward to. Yep. When you look at Liverpool, they feel like a fading team in regards to, not necessarily a team. Klopp's a fantastic manager. I think all this stuff about 7 years is a load of nonsense. He could be there for the next 5-10 years and he'll do a great job and he'll win titles for them and he'll win cups for them. It seems to be the time where they need to reset and they need to get rid of some of their players, bring some in, or promote the youth that little bit more than they have been. I mean, their midfield isn't good enough. Thiago's fantastic.
That's the big thing for Liverpool in terms of, at their peak, there was the talk about their front three: Salah, Firmino, Mane.
And this front three could be great.
Yep. I think the front three isn't the problem, I think, at the moment. But as you said, I agree with you, it's their midfield. It's not where it needs to be.
I'd add the defence as well, though. I think the defence has been poor, which in turn has made Alisson look poor as well.
They haven't played very well this season, but I think class, permanent, form temporary. I think you look in terms of their first choice defence. Well, I'd say the first choice defence. Not being a Liverpool fan, they can correct me. Like Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, and Konate. Have they been on top of the game this season? Probably not. All of them. Are they capable of stepping it up? I'd say they are. I mean, I don't think they're past it, any of them. And Trent Alexander-Arnold, being as though he's not going to have to play in any international breaks probably for the next year, based on the squad selection. He'll be fresh for the league. I think for the defence, not very good this season. I think they can improve. I agree with you. The midfield is the big issue for them.
I mean, the thing with that midfield is you've got Harvey Elliott, who could be a star. He's going to take a few years. Very much what we say about Jacob Ramsey. He's going to be in and out of the team. His form's going to go up and down. The same as Basetic. I've murdered his name.
Out for the season now, injured, but he'll be back again next year.
He was doing well, but he's going to need a couple of years, and he'll need a younger Jordan Henderson next to him to guide him through those games. Thiago's been fantastic when he's fit. Yep. Fabinho, I think, it's probably just getting to that age now where he needs to move on. We know that Bobby Firmino's going. Diego Jota, if he'd have been fit, when he's fit, is a very good striker. Darwin has got a lot more goals than people are giving him credit for. Jake constantly has a go about him, and I've told him many times he's a very good player. He has too many shots for goals. He's very Andy Cole but moving him back to the left wing where he was for Benfica has been a masterstroke. And when you think that Salah's had a poor season, but his goal contribution's like 20 odd, and he's like ripping it up apart from when he's taking penalties against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
They'll turn it back around.
Yeah, I think in terms of Núñez this season, it's the age-old question of would you rather have somebody who gets in the positions and misses, or would you? I mean, ideally you'd have him scoring, but in terms of at least he's getting in the right place.
Can work on it.
Yeah, and I think in terms of not quicker the Premier League than Portuguese football, there's stuff to work on. I mean, if he was, even in terms of it's slightly different comparison, but when Arsenal brought Henry and he wasn't seen as centre forward, and he wasn't scoring half as many goals as Núñez is, and everybody was saying, he's crap, rubbish, and then look what happened to him. I'm not saying he's as good as Henry, but I'm saying like a wide player, give him a bit of time. Yeah. If they got that bit of potential, I think they can do some damage, and I think it'll be better next season. I think in terms of for Liverpool, losing Mane was a bigger loss than perhaps was anticipated.
It's taken time, hasn't it, for them to get over that, and they're still getting over it now. It will be the summer, and the only way to really get over it is by bringing in a top class world class, midfielder. If they can get their hands on Jude Bellingham, my days, what a sensational signing that will be. I'm not sure I see it happen if Real Madrid come sniffing around.
Yeah, I mean, there, as we mentioned earlier, there is a pecking order of football clubs, and even for English players or non-South American players, almost regardless of what's going on in the wider context of Spanish football, Real Madrid, Barcelona, they are still seen as the top clubs to go to.
And if Man City come along as well, then that's someone else for him to have that tussle with, isn't it, over him? But our top four, very similar, except for Brighton and Liverpool. I can't help but laugh and chuckle when I mention Liverpool. Sorry, you're going to gazump me at the end of the season when they finish fourth, and when they do, I'll eat my hat live on air.
It'll probably be the only prediction I get right based on what's going on. So we're going to go straight into our other prediction. What you could say is the first loser place, fifth. At the start of the season, as you mentioned, Man United, Chelsea were our picks. Obviously, Man United isn't your pick moving forwards because you got them third. Who have you got fifth?
The Sky 6 is well and truly broken up, but it's broken up by the team that I think Sky want to make the Sky 7 out of. Those moneybags who haven't splashed loads and loads and loads of cash. They've gone about it in a fairly decent way. They brought in top players, and they've done well, but I think that they're drawing too many games, and ultimately that is why they finished below Brighton, though when I did it myself I had them fourth. Newcastle United. Newcastle have had a very good season. I know there's a lot of fans out there who don't like Newcastle and whatnot. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for them. I think because of the Kevin Keegan rock and roll football era, they're doing well. They've had a lot of players step up. I mean, Miggy Almiron has been sensational for them.
He was. He's dropped off. Yeah, dropped off recently, but certainly before the World Cup, he was dominating. And
then Bruno Jimenez, Joelinton, Shaw, Botman, Nick Pope, Dan Burn at left back, Kieran Trippier. I can't believe I'm saying this. what a sensational signing he was last season for them. But they've still got a lot of, I don't want to say dross around the squad, but they've got a lot of players who aren't going to help them get into the top four. The likes of, and they're good players, but Joe Willock's not good enough for Newcastle. He was when he went there and he was getting those goals.
It was only a year ago, kind of as well.
I know, but I think that's how quickly they're evolving. Callum Wilson isn't good enough. He should be not coming to the Villa, you know.
He was in the World Cup a couple of months ago. How quickly things changed.
But he wasn't in the last squad.
He's injured and he hadn't scored.
Well, there you go, that's why.
Yeah.
Alexander Isaac's doing okay for him. St Maximum's dropped off a bit this season as well, you know. But fifth for me, same number of points as Brighton as well.
If there's ever a way you can quietly spend £250 million, then Newcastle have done that with their signing.
I think it's a genuine thing that you can say that they have actually done, you know, because they've done it, but they brought in a lot of players who are very good players. When you like Bruno Guimaraes, there was all that. Oh, he's only going there for the money. Probably did, but what a great signing he was.
Play well.
Yeah, Botman as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant defender.
I think in terms of Newcastle are building sensibly. In terms of they got the money in before the January transfer window last season, and they brought players who would keep them up and would be able to. I think what they thought would be the next stage of regression this season would be top half, maybe a punt at a Europa Conference League place, maybe have a good run in a cup. They got to the final of the League Cup. I think they were above the expectations I think they were third at one point this season.
I think they were higher. I think they were second at one point, weren't they?
Yeah, I think there was outside talk of not too far off, kind of the top of the table in terms of points. So I think they are further ahead than what they thought they would be.
Mm-hmm.
I have Newcastle fifth as well in my updated prediction. I've got them 2 points off the team who come fourth.
Okay.
And as you said, they've already drawn a lot of games already, so this isn't, going too much beyond what's going on. But yeah, they're draws. I think it's the defence is very good. It's just you need a bit more kind of up front, which is, we mentioned the Kevin Keegan era. Absolute contrast. If you can merge this defence with that attack, then, they already would have won the league by now.
They need a left back, like a Kieran Tierney type of a proper left back there.
You think he would be available, in terms of...
Closer to home as well for him.
Yeah, and, in terms of he's not first choice at Arsenal. We're speculating for Newcastle signings. Let's get the summer transfer podcast. We'll get that going. But whilst we are going through our predictions for the current season, that's the first 5 done.
Well, I had Newcastle, just really quickly, I had Newcastle 8th at the start of the season predictions. I would like to point out, and I'm going to throw my hand up for an Awuga, absolute rubbish. I had Brighton 12th.
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk about where I had these teams. But no, okay, we will. For transparency, I had Newcastle 12th.
Yeah.
At the start of the season. So, yeah, I certainly think they've overdone expectations.
We had Liverpool second.
We both had Liverpool second.
Even funnier than them coming fourth.
And I had Brighton 15th. Which doesn't look like that is going to happen. But as I said, I'm happy Brighton have overachieved. So,
well, I had Liverpool 6. There you go. That was. Oh no, Liverpool now. Sorry, your Liverpool, who I had second, I've now got 6. I realise I just completely ruined your link there, but
we'll roll with it. But you got to roll with it live on air. So you've got Liverpool. You got to
take your time.
Oasis version or Liam Gallagher version? There's a question, but. No question about what we had as our predictions 6th to 10th at the start of the season. In terms of your predictions, you had Chelsea 6th, Villa 7th, Newcastle 8th, West Ham 9th and Palace 10th. I had United 6th, West Ham 7th, Villa 8th, Wolves 9th and Palace 10th. Not age massively well. Some of those for me. But saying I had Chelsea 5th, you had them 6th, so we had them kind of... Well, neither of us had them qualifying for the Champions League, which looks like at time recording is going to be the outcome. I mean, neither of us are predicting them coming Champions League still. So
Watch them win the league.
well, I suppose if
Watch them win the Champions League. It'll be such a Chelsea jammy thing to do. Beating Real and beating Bayern on the way.
that is pretty much 2012 all over again, isn't it? No, Di
Yeah.
Matteo, Champions League winning manager.
He even tried to throw it by saying, "Here you go, Ryan Bertrand. Go and make your debut."
That was a bit like, to be fair, that was like from the playbook of when we played Graham Fenton in the League Cup final and had him centre midfield, man marking. I think we had him man marking Mark Hughes, I think, from recollection. But
There you go.
in terms of, you had Chelsea 6, so then 5th, so we'll start with there. We talked about how Newcastle had stealthily spent like 250 million at least and have made their team better. Chelsea have very openly spent it must be nearly $1 billion. They're like so much money on players. They've done it by within the rules as they are currently a financial fair play, by signing players to long-term deals, knowing that the current rules only take the first 5 years of a contract into advance. So they've been signing players 7-year deals, 8-year deals. Those rules have been changed as a result of what Chelsea have been doing. You very rarely see a team, Everton accepted, who we'll come on to, a team who spends so much money and look worse. A lot worse. Because at time of recording, Chelsea and they're not in the Champions League places at time of recording. They are 10th on the same number of points as Villa. So Chelsea 6. They shouldn't have sat my man Tuchel, should they?
Is that who you've got 6, Chelsea?
That's who you had 6 at the start of the season.
Oh, yeah,
I was
yeah.
just saying, in terms of you've got Liverpool 6. So we'll go straight on to those predictions. I have Brighton 6.
Okay. So that was just a swap of our two then. I mean, yeah, you're right about Chelsea. We'll get into Chelsea a little bit more. Tommy Tuchel, Bayern Munich, and all of that. Brighton 6 is a fantastic season for Brighton.
Yeah, European football you'd expect.
Oh yeah, and they deserve it, and they'll do the same again next year in trying to sell off some of their bigger players. Casiado, 70-odd million. I mean, he's not worth that at all. But if that's what his value is to Brighton, then he's worth every penny of it. It's like Grealish with Villa, Rice with West Ham. Brighton will have had a great season. The worry for them for next year is if they get into Europe, is their squad big enough to handle trying to win whatever European competition they're in, and if they fall drastically at the end of this season, which none of us are predicting that they do, will they be able to bounce back next season?
It could be a potential similar situation to a team we'll come on to, West Ham, qualify for Europe. They spent quite a bit of money in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Premier League wise, it got worse. At time of recording, they're still in the Europa League, so their European adventure remains ongoing. But yeah, certainly a legitimate concern in terms of have you got a squad big enough to deal with the Thursday, Sunday repetitive nature of European and Premier League football.
You've just got to hope that you've got the Villa on that Sunday, haven't you? So that you get a win.
Well, we beat Brighton on a Sunday.
I'm on about West Ham.
We didn't lose to West Ham on a Sunday. I mean, we drew to them.
Well, he lost 1-0 to them as well on a Sunday.
It's pretty. When was last time we beat
At
West
home.
Ham? Probably like 45 years ago.
Was it when we had to replay them in the League Cup?
Man, what a great series of events that was. The Gareth Southgate penalty that never was. Not that one.
Yeah, the other one.
This one. Yeah.
Oh,
But
man.
in terms of, so you had Villa 7th. We'll come on to them because I'm going to hazard a guess. Spoiler alert. Potentially. Have you got Villa 7th?
Well, actually, I don't.
No.
I'm a negative Baz.
Yeah, well, you got to get the merchandise sold somehow. So, your 7th place in the new upgraded predictions using a supercomputer. Who have you got 7th?
Wow. They've done bugger all for the last 20 years, so they might as well continue it. I've got Tottenham Hotspur to finish 7th on the same number of points as 65 points, that is. Spurs, man, I can see them getting some good results, maybe like snatching a win against Man United.
They'll beat us. That's my prediction.
I've got them drawing 0-0 with us, and it's probably the only 0-0 I put into the whole prediction thing, because I don't like 0-0s.
I think somehow the rules of the Premier League will change so that Bjorn Engels can get paraglided onto the pitch in injury time, just so Spurs can win.
Well, it'll be the game that Heung-min Son goes and scores 40 goals to end up top scorer, wouldn't it?
Got to cash in that check.
I think Spurs have just been so bloody awful this season. They've been a real disappointment.
They started the season really well, though, but they're playing badly, but still actually getting some results.
It's when people are going, bloody hell, Eric Dyer's been top class, and you're thinking...
Got him in the World Cup.
Well, he did. And to be fair, he's not a bad defender in a back five, but they've been poor. They've had injury problems, obviously. Harry Kane has scored quite a few goals. He's broken a couple of records this season, internationally and for Spurs. I had them to win the FA Cup. What a load of rubbish. You had them to win the League Cup, if I remember correctly. But, oh man, Spurs are on, they need... They're like Liverpool in many ways. They're not as good as Liverpool, but they're like Liverpool in the fact that they need an overhaul of a whole position as well. They need to overhaul their defence. I don't think bringing in Pedro Porro is exactly the greatest signing. They need 3 brand new centre-backs. They need a better left wing-back, and they need a new goalie. However, hands off Debo.
In terms of... Again, they've spent quite a bit of money, considering Conte's been talking about how they've had no money.
Oh, mate, too right. Bentancur, Kulusevski, Bissouma, Liam.
I'm going to say they're going to have plenty of money in the summer when Harry Kane joins Man United or wherever he's going. So
you can't go to Man United.
But, I think for Spurs,
Richarlison
hasn't
scored in the Premier League.
They just haven't played him, have they? Like in terms of
until he moaned, and then they put you in.
To be fair, that is like textbook 101. Like in terms of life, just moan, and then you get something just to shut you up.
And he was like, whoever was working for the Premier League that weekend against Forest was like, I don't like the way that you've gone about this, so you're offside when you score your first goal of the season.
Infallible, foolproof VAR system. But to confirm what is a foolproof prediction, I've got Spurs 7th as well in my predictions.
I think you've got to say, I know we were saying it about other teams before. I mean, you look at Brighton and there's too many players to say that who to pick a best player for them this season. Newcastle, you're probably looking at any of the ones I named, Joe Linton and whatnot. Liverpool, you can say that Van Dijk and Trent have been the standout players for the wrong reasons, really. And when you look at Spurs, you would say the same about Heung-min Son. Heung-min Son has been so poor this season. Hardly got any goals. I'm not saying this just because of your prediction.
He couldn't deal with the pressure
He's been
living up to my expectations.
He's been awful. And another player who I hate to have a go at him because I have done previously, though I actually had him down as Golden Glove winner this year. He's not going to see the goal for a few weeks anyway. Hugo Lloris, mate, they need to upgrade on that defence. Yeah,
there are a few players short. I think Porro I saw was busy taking a pop at Tim Sherwood, which, in terms of never the most productive way of spending your time. I mean, I'd say it's a good job Porro and you haven't been in the same room. Otherwise, there'd be quite the tasty debate. Well, speaking of tasty debates...
Teddy Sheringham actually said that Tim Sherwood should take over at Tottenham again when they sack Conte. I'm all aboard that. I'm on that train.
I mean, to be fair, you said the biggest laugh of the podcast was me predicting Liverpool 4th. I think that's up there in terms of getting Tim Sherwood back at Spurs. Dear me.
Getting back, I can bring out the gilet. I've always liked Tottenham.
Oh God! Get Adebayor, you're out of retirement. Just to get that salute, you know, bring him back. They play like Man City away. They lose 6-1, but Adebayor scores that one. Salutes in the centre of the field. I'm all for it.
Yeah, man. Runs all the way up to the Man City fans, slides in front of them.
Yeah. We'll take it. But speaking of sliding, potentially sliding or potentially rising, depending on who we have for our 8th place predictions. For me, rising for me, in terms of where I had them at the start of the season, the team I had in 8th, who I've got in 8th now,
Yeah.
we both had in the same place in pre-season, a lot lower down the league. I won't say what place at this stage.
I know what you're going to say.
But
I can tell.
I've got Brentford coming 8th in the updated league. I mean, similar to Brighton.
We should have been cancelled after that prediction.
Yeah, we should have been cancelled during the predictions. You know, never made it to the end. But Brentford, similar to Brighton, a team who you can't help but have a little smile on your face for doing well. I think the fact they've overcome off the field issues in respect of, you know, certain betting charges against their top scorer, who's carrying on scoring. They're a team in terms of, I don't want to say a poor man's Brighton, because in terms of I've got Brighton 6th and Brentford 8th, so there's not really too much of a gap. And in my points, I've only got 3 points difference between them and my updated. So not a million miles away, but the Brentford team goes a bit more under the radar, I would say, than the Brighton team. But 8th place, difficult to beat.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from, in what is a theme of the podcast so far anniversary, when they play us. But yeah, I
Who scored 2 goals?
Yeah. Talk about a love lost.
I forgot.
But in terms of Thomas Frank, continues to do a very good job.
Oh, you love Thomas Frank.
I think he's a good manager, and I think, to be fair, if he gets him to 8th, I think that's a very good job indeed. And I think in terms of, there was some esteemed pundits thought they would struggle this season, but
No, you had him 17th.
yeah, so did you.
No, I said we. Yeah, we did. We
yeah.
did.
So at time of recording, Brentford are 8th in the table. So we're predicting them to maintain that run of form for the rest of the season. But good team, solid team. I think they'll beat us in another theme of the show moving forwards. I think they'll beat us in April.
See, I've got Brentford 8th as well. I've got them on 60 points. Goal difference separates them in 9th.
I've got them on 60 points as well.
I, unlike you, am not a negative Baz, and I've got Villa beating Brentford away 3-1. Just the Unai Emery effect. I don't know how I've got Villa finishing as low down as they have, to be honest.
17th.
I would actually... This is a potential comment. It's probably not. It's not a popular take type of thing. I think that Brentford should feel disappointed if they finish 8th behind Spurs and Liverpool this season for how poorly those two teams done. I know you've got Liverpool to come fourth.
Only 9 points gap. Only 9, but I take your point in terms of...
Or below Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah, I take your point in terms of it's a season where teams haven't done very well who you'd expect to do better. And so in terms of potentially beating them. But, you know, in terms of Spurs, you know, we're talking about them being absolutely terrible. At time of recording, they are 4th. So but yeah, I mean, I take your point. I think Europe they'll be hoping to get. So if they miss out on that, there'll be a slight tinge of disappointment. But again, a platform for them to maintain and potentially build on for next season.
And the good thing about that is for them is that they can bring the players in. They don't have the distraction of Europe, and they can push again. Will teams have figured them out? Would you have thought that last season? They obviously haven't. They are like Brighton. I see Brighton a bit as artists, the way they play football, the way they dismantled West Ham. And West Ham are poor this season, but they've got some very good players. But the way they dismantled them was phenomenal a few weeks ago, like 22 shots.
Yep.
Brentford are more of a machine. They're like a transformer, just running at you, you know. And when you've got Ivan Toney up front, who Newcastle flogged to Peterborough for peanuts, and he comes back, and he's absolutely smashing this league. He's the type of player I love at the Villa. He ain't going to join the Villa. I love him there. I don't see... Would he move on to somebody else? Who knows? Depends if he wants to go and win things.
I think it also, in the short term, depends on what happens off the field.
Oh, of course. But he's been a megastar for them. And I think you can say that he's carried the team at times with some of the goals, because he's got the team buoyed and he's helped them get back into the groove of getting a positive result. He's been great. The other thing I like about Brentford is that, and it's going to sound really ridiculous, they get the same home shirt for 2 years. They've rewarded their fans by saying, don't give us as much money, you're paying extra because of the stadium or whatnot, we know what cost of living's like. They brought in some very good players who maybe haven't played as much as they would have for Hickey and Damsgaard. But they've got time. They're adapting to the league without Brentford, dropping away. And when they can finally get into the team, they'll be fine. Brentford, very good shout for 8th there for both of us, if I do say so myself. Great season. Thomas Frank, top class manager.
Yeah, I think it's a sign of how well they've done. That kind of their big summer signings have got nowhere near the team, and they've still done quite well. So they're demonstrating they're definitely doing something right.
Well, that's it. Yeah, you can't even name after. You probably can't even name many players apart from Ivan Toney for them. I mean, I'm sure we can, but most football fans wouldn't be able to, and that says something in itself. Yeah,
the power of the team over the individual certainly at Brighton. But speaking of things that have done very well, 9th place in the Premier League is the opposite for me and you. Because I think in terms of our pre-season predictions, I think in terms of the position where the teams we had in 9th have underperformed the most was for 9th. Because in terms of, we had West Ham 9th, Wolves 9th, respectively. I don't think either of us have got them 9th now, probably a lot lower.
No.
I was going to say, in terms of 9th, who have you got now coming 9th?
Well, I don't have West Ham anymore, but I do have, and it'll be no surprise because people will be thinking when he hasn't said them yet. I've got Chelsea.
Yep.
And I think the problem for Chelsea is, I think they'll get some really good results. The problem is, their good results will be draws against Arsenal and Man United, and that they won't have enough in them to beat those teams just yet. I mean, a lot of their players are massively underperformed. Havertz has not done very well. Sterling has not been a very good signing at all for them.
He started okay, faded, got injured. I think in terms of, it's the age-old debate between, you have players who are very good, and there's a difference between players who can take a team by the scruff of the neck when the team's playing badly. You could say like Gerrard at Liverpool, for example, who kind of, his performance almost got better. The worse the team got, or the worse situation the team was in, the better he played.
Yeah.
Almost. And some players who are up, and most players are like this, to be fair, like in life as well. So it's not meant to be a massive criticism, but for some players, or a lot of players, when the team's doing well, they will also do very well and look really, really good. But when the team's doing badly, they struggle as well. And I think perhaps you could say that for Sterling, because I suppose you look at it in terms of his top flight career, Liverpool, Man City.
Yeah.
He played in that Liverpool team that was, the season where they came second, Suarez, Sturridge, absolutely flying, really exciting team. Played for City, under Guardiola. Elevated his personal play to the next level. Guardiola, excellent coach who does that.
Integral for England, getting to those later stages of rounds.
Yeah, so you could say this is potentially one of the few seasons, especially in recent years, where he's been in a, inverted commas, struggling team. I mean, Chelsea haven't exactly been in a relegation battle, but in that scenario, a lot of off-field and on-field uncertainty affected him slightly. But in terms of, we mentioned earlier, he spent so much money, got worse. Graham Potter in charge. People slagging off Graham Potter. saying he's a terrible manager, you know, kind of what's he doing, he's out of his depth.
No.
But the players he brought in, no, the players that Chelsea have brought in, I'm pretty sure I'd be surprised if more than one, if that. Graham Potter knocked on the chairman's door or Skyped him or Teams or whatever and went, I want that player in. Go and get him for me. Basically, the chairman has played Football Manager, had a look at kind of some big players available. He's just had that there's absolutely no... I say there's no coherency. They started off by buying young players. Chukwuemeka was one of them, and we laughed all the way to the bank to get 20 million for him. Then they bought players like Aubameyang, like at the opposite end.
Yeah.
January, they largely went back to the younger players, but the result of that, a lot of young players, big money. They're still very good players. I do think they'll come good in terms of, I think they will do better next year than this season. But from a manager perspective, just come into the club, try to stamp his authority. When you just supermarket sweeped like 7 or 8 players in January who you don't know, who you didn't really have on your radar, very difficult to kind of get them up to speed kind of straight away, especially long-term contracts, big money, as we mentioned. So,
but will these players come good next season at Chelsea is one of the things. When you've got a squad of 50 players with the likes of a Conor Gallagher, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, they've got to want to leave at some point.
Yeah, I think in terms of those players, where it could be good news for a club like Villa in terms of those. I mean, Loftus-Cheek, I mean, you might think, not really particularly exciting
player.
He's played in the World Cup.
Yeah.
You know, so you would anticipate Chelsea financial fair play, even though they managed to expertly navigate it. They want to make some money back. You know, in terms of, for the price is right, if somebody said to me 10 million for Loftus-Cheek, or maybe 15, I don't think you can... I mean...
You wouldn't.
I think about that in terms of 15 years ago, we spent 7 million on Rio Coca. So in terms of 15 million... I mean, Rio Coca had some decent games, so I'm not saying he's terrible. But what I'm saying is, in terms of 15 million for a player like Loftus-Cheek, I don't think you could... Like, late 20s, I don't think you can argue too much.
It's not as laughable as Liverpool coming forth,
well,
no.
When they, I mean, to be fair, when I come... I mean, we both know Liverpool fans. I'm the one organising the parade when they come forth.
See, the thing for Chelsea for me, João Felix is coming in. He's doing quite well after that savage red card he got against Fulham.
Yep.
He's starting to come good. Potter, they will come good before the end of this season. Potter will get them right. He'll ship out all the players he doesn't want. He doesn't have to bring too many players in then, really.
Can't afford to bring any more in. Probably literally, and also in terms of squad space, as you mentioned.
But when you look at their players, and I say that about Sterling, you're right. You know, with everything you said. He hasn't done great, though. Nor has Havertz. Kante, when he comes back to form, let's see if they keep him, because his contract expires.
Fitness is an issue as well.
The one player they've got that is that Steven Gerrard player, and I wonder whether they move him into central midfield at some point because he played there previously on loan. Reece James is their engine now, and he can't do it all from right wing back, though he has a very good go.
I suppose they spent 110. Was it 110 million on Fernandes?
On Enzo, yeah, but Enzo and James in the middle. You know, I know they got Kovacic as well, who toughest opponent he's played against, John McGinn.
Yep, obviously.
You know, maybe, but yeah, Reece James, good season for me. Just wanted to say that they have done one good thing, and I think that Potter will start doing very well for them.
I think so. I mean, the quality of the squad means you think the performances will obtain. Reece James got injured at the worst time. Missing out on the World Cup, getting injured just before then. And Chilwell as well.
Two best wing backs in the league. Those two. I don't think there's better wing backs.
They're a good combo. I mean, I think in terms of the system is suited for them at Chelsea. And so I think they will get better. Yeah, there's no pressure on them for the rest of the season, apart from in the Champions League. So league-wise, I think they'll go in and they'll knock a few teams over.
But that's enough of my 9th place. Who's yours?
Well, very anticlimactically, I've got Chelsea as well coming 9th. So at the start of the season, our picks between 6 and 10th, but no, we'll come on to 10th in a moment. Between 6th and 9th, we had none the same.
No.
we got a few more similar
Yeah.
for the rest of the season. One pick we did agree on at the start of the season, 10th place. We both had Palace.
Uh-huh.
We'll come on to them because a lot's happened at Palace. Even though time recording, Palace are only 12th. So you could say, oh, that's not too far away. Lots happened. But in terms of 10th, now, for your predictions for the rest of the season, who have you got coming 10th?
We've got Super Unai Emery.
Klaxon alert! Finally Villa talk! Yay!
It's Aston Villa. Aston Villa are 10th. Let's see if you've got the same. You got the same team in 10th.
No.
Oh, fuck's sake. Anyway, Aston Villa for me. I think that one of the signings of the season is Unai Emery coming in.
100%.
There wasn't the fanfare around him, and I said at the time, there's never been fanfare around a manager as much as there was Martin O'Neill. Dean Smith did well. We grew into Dean Smith a lot more, really. I think everybody wanted him. They grew into him more after his achievements in his first 3 seasons for us. The getting up, the staying up, the finishing 11th, and everything he did for us. Thank you, Dino, once again. Yep. Unai Emery is a class above everything else we've had since Martin O'Neill, and I include Tim Sherwood in that.
That is a big admission on your part.
He's just one of those where you sit and you patiently watch them pass the ball around, and whilst it might not be the most exhilarating thing, you think, do you know what, I can live with this, because this bloke is going places, and whilst we might only get 10th this season, and I really do believe that we will, with 58 points, and we will be quite a few points ahead of 11th, I think that next year we're going to come alive. You can see what he's trying to do.
Yep.
He's been fantastic. And one of the other signings of the season, Boubacar Kamara.
Yep. Excellent.
Amazing. And
free transfer, you
yeah,
not get better than that.
No, you're not. And you just see how players are doing. Matty Cash is starting to do brilliantly again. Ezri Konsa has had a turnaround in form. Tyrone Mings been nominated for Player of the Month. Unai Emery, Manager of the Month again. John McGinn, look how brilliant he's been in 2 different positions. People are going, I wouldn't put him centre mid. Been fantastic. Yep. And Ollie Watkins, talking about that Ronaldo sort of, if you keep trying, you can get better. He's done cracking since Danny Ings left. 6 in 8, I think he's got, and he's got quite a few goal contributions.
Yep. I think you can tell the difference that somebody with meticulous attention to detail on the training pitch, off the field, away from the 90 minutes, can add to a team. And a lot of the players at Villa have said this is the most intense, kind of prep, dossiers, training that you could possibly have. And I think in terms of, we often talk about it, managers, you go the opposite after you sack a manager. You kind of try and get somebody different. And the only way I can describe how we got Unai Emery in comparison to Steven Gerrard, previous Villa manager, relegation zone, as you'll be aware, when he got sacked. We failed upwards. That's the only way I can describe it. The last game, and I will tip my hat because you'll know I'm going to talk about who I've got in 10th place. The team I've got in 10th, last game of the season, last game of Gerrard, we played this team. We were absolute shambles.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of, I very rarely, even as a Villa fan, even as a negative Baz, I very rarely watched a game of football where I've watched the first 30 seconds and gone, we're getting banged here after 30 seconds. If you go up the whole end, you kind of hear it every week in terms of people saying how terrible we are. But there's very few games I can remember just, no, absolutely no chance. Cup final against Arsenal was one of them after the first 5 minutes. We're getting absolutely banged. But we were tactically clueless, and players didn't look like they knew what they were doing, but I don't think they really believed in what they were doing by the end.
Harrison Reed score against us.
Oh God, I think Harrison Ford probably could have scored against us.
Mate,
what's going on?
He's been doing some top quality TV recently, Shrinking on Apple. Fantastic.
Is that with Jason Segel?
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, I think. But to be fair, we needed a shrink after the Gerrard era, but we got somebody in absolute opposite. I think in terms of Gerrard, not the only player, former player like Lampard, for example, you can name straight off the top of your head. Great player, gets a job at a higher level than what they really expect. I mean, he did a decent. He won one trophy at Rangers. It was the one trophy they wanted, and they did very well. You could say he laid the groundwork for the team that got to the Europa League final later on. So I don't think you can say he did you can't say he did a terrible job at Rangers. You have to say he did a good job at Rangers, but demonstrates a difference in the quality, the step up in the Premier League. And Emre, I think the fact that he came after Wenger at Arsenal was always a thankless task. The media...
We're thankful.
Yeah, the London-centric media were always going to give him a hard time. He did in the grand scheme of things, I think he did a decent job at Arsenal, but based on what they were. But he had, in the big moments, they lost, and that's where he got pillared. But I think for us, we made a massive investment in him in terms of the longest contract we've ever given a manager, kind of wages, I think probably the highest we've ever given, and we really gave him 100% kind of backing, which I think has given him the confidence, to come, because I think previously he'd been linked with Newcastle. There were personal reasons why he didn't go, but the faith we showed in him convinced him to come, and obviously the players are behind what Emre's doing, because it could have been in terms of, I know a few players went out in January out of the club, but you couldn't really have blamed him if he said, well, I'm flogging the whole lot kind of in January. But I mean, we had a bit of an upturn kind of immediately after he joined and that. But yeah, I think it's a demonstration of what a decent coach can do.
With him, he could take Barry, the bloke who works behind the bookies in the North Stand, and you'd feel that he would give him that much information that he put in a half-decent performance for us.
Wednesday night football, he could get him up there to that level.
Mate, top-class coach, top-class tactician. Arguably, I mean, he's not going to win manager of the season, we know that. There's too many teams that are above us that have done very, very well this year. Watch out for next season. Unai's coming for him. And that's why we're 10th.
Yeah, I think in terms of big summer, if we get the players in that we want to get in that can make a difference to the team, I think, we'll be looking higher up the table this season. So you probably hazarded a guess from my description who I've got 10th. I've got Fulham 10th. And fair to say, we both didn't think Fulham would do very well this season. So they were higher up the table than 10th during the course of the season. At time recording, they are 9th. So got them dropping off. I think a little bit, their FA Cup explosion in more than one sense.
That was amazing to watch, though.
So I didn't get to see that game.
I had to keep pausing it because things were going on in the house. So I was like, I can't miss a minute of this.
I was going to say, for a very exciting insight to my life, I had a treble on in terms of that Sunday. I had Arsenal to win, Brighton to win, and United to win. And the first two games came in. I wasn't able to watch any of these games because I was just relying on updates on my phone. So I saw Fulham take the lead midway through the second half, and the text commentary basically saying United are garbage, Fulham are cruising. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh God, this is not going well for my 20 pence. And then just see kind of what happened, in terms of absolute... I think in terms of, there's always a talk about Fergie, kind of having one over the refs. I think even this, they'd be like, oh, nah. Even Fergie would be going, nah, no chance. I mean, the decisions, I don't want to turn this too much into a kind of this game about Fulham, but, talk about, Mitrovic should be banned, for 20 games, what he did. No. I mean, I think you don't touch a ref. I think he should he's been sent off, should get a ban, obviously, but... I think 10 games is a bit ridiculous.
Is that what they've done?
They haven't done it yet. There's some people who've been saying he should be banned for 10 games, kind of all that.
What about Bruno pushing the linesman?
Yeah, I mean, I think people try and explain the difference, and it's like one was aggressive, and one was, just trying to get on with the game. I think they're both rubbish, really. But
Right.
I think that is going to that will impact Fulham going higher up the table. I think for the Scars, but I think in my predictor, I've got them holding on to 10th.
How many goals has Mitrovic got this season? Just out of interest.
A couple.
A couple. Is that all?
Yeah.
You reckon just a couple? I mean, I lost count of 10.
Yeah.
To be honest with you,
I think in terms of, it's like
that's my best call of the season.
somebody disappoints you so many times in life, you just kind of turn your back on them, and that's when they do the best. And that was it with Mitrovic, because in the Premier League for years I'd said he's going to score goals, and he did absolutely nothing. There was, before the start of the season, and this demonstrates why the internet is killing your brain, folks. I saw a meme about Mitrovic, and it was basically along the lines, it was like I can't remember the name of the page on Instagram, but it was basically about the situation in school. I think it's more in America, where kids get held back a grade.
Yeah.
And it was basically like Mitrovic gets held back a grade, and it was basically just in terms of all his goals in the Championship, and then comparing it to the Premier League, where he's like falling over. I was influenced by memes. that is all I can say. But he has done what we all thought he would do for years, and you had faith in him. I didn't. So neither of us had faith that would keep him up. But you got to
19.
Gonna say we didn't do very well there. But
More realistic than Liverpool finishing fourth.
See some of these other predictions we got. But in terms of moving on to the third five of the table, before the start of the season, you had the order going from 11th to 15th. Wolves, Brighton, Leicester, Bournemouth, Everton. I had Leicester, Newcastle, Southampton, Everton and Brighton. A few of those have already been blown out of the water, as we can say. So we'll just skip straight to now. 11th, as I mentioned, I've got Villa in 11th, and we talked about Villa, and we're positive about them going to next season. Who have you got in 11th?
I can't believe that I've got these in 11th. 47 points, because I think they're going to be very indifferent now that they've brought old Roy Hodgson back. I've got Crystal Palace finishing 11th. I think that he'll get some results in the games that matter. He'll get the old spirit. It'd be a bit like Dad Zama.
You got the 47 points.
I know, 47 points, I know. Yeah. How many are they on the moment? About like 10?
20. At time recording, they have just sacked Patrick Vieira.
Yeah.
They've lost 4 in a row.
Mate.
They're on 27 points with 10 games to go. So your prediction for Palace's last 10 games of the season is they go at 2 points a game.
Mate, they're gonna be proper. They don't even win all of them.
And the thing is, in terms of they could go at 2 points a game, which is Champions League form.
Yeah, too right.
At time recording, they are 12th.
Yep.
So you go on that run, and based on how far they're behind, they're 11 points behind 11th for time recording. They go on a great run, and it only gets them one place higher up the table.
Mate, and the thing is, they're 11 points behind the Villa in mine still, because we get on to 58.
I
have
I won't
to
tip
beat
my hat
everyone.
in terms of where I've got. I've got them 9 behind Villa in mine, but still comfortable.
The thing is with Palace, it doesn't matter about the points that they finish on. It's the places, isn't it? That's what matters here.
Yep.
I've got them to come 11th. I don't know why. They've just finished 11th, and I was really disappointed in the supercomputer, because the supercomputer in my brain definitely did not have them coming 11th.
I think they got their business done before the World Cup. I mean, at time recording, they haven't won a game this year. They've scored 4 goals, I think, or something.
You can't even say that they've done enough to stay safe at the moment, because they're so close to the relegation zone as well.
Yeah.
But with these extra 20 points, they're going to be fine.
Yeah, those extra 20 points are going to come in handy. But
They're not even club card points.
But to be fair, the club card, Tesco club card, they're getting rid of kind of in April. I mean, the season won't be over before they get rid of the club card. I think,
But they've got more.
I'm going to say, it's not for me to justify your pick, but I would say they've got enough good players you'd think would keep them away from the bottom 3. I think that's as far as we can go this season.
I think the other good thing is that Hodgson knows them, doesn't he? if it is him who comes in, if he has come in, I don't know. I've lost track of it all.
I don't think he knows, to be fair. I think he has, but he just went for a kip on his rocking chair kind of afterwards.
Like Michael Elise, Abrici is they're young players. They're going to be in and out of form, but as long as one of them's in form at a time. Zaha,
need him fit. If he's fit, he'll score enough goals to keep them up.
They should have enough defensively, really. Guy and Anderson are two top quality defenders, did very well last season. We raved over them last season.
Yep.
Palace on 1 million points in 11th.
I was going to say, never has there been, with Vieira, all the statements from the club about we really didn't want to sack him. Was that, well, you didn't stop me sacking him.
They had to,
but it was,
they?
I think in terms of once, momentum is a big thing in the league. I'll be interested to see what they do in the summer in terms of where they go managerial. They might appoint Vieira back. I wouldn't rule that out. But in terms of something I would definitely rule out is who I predict coming 12th, currently based on previous predictions.
So who did you have 11th? Did you have the Villa?
I had Villa 11th.
Oh, okay.
In terms of 12, and again in terms of, I scratched my head a little bit based on current form, because this team has not won the last 5 games. They lost 4 of the last 5. They're currently 17th at time of recording. But 12th, I've got Leicester coming 12th.
What?
And not... Yeah. And not on a great number of points. I mean, they say...
Worse.
I mean, they say... What's the point number, the magic number they say to say 38, usually? If you get 38...
38, 40. Yeah.
I've got them on 39. So, not really doing massively well. And I only had them 11th at the start of the season. So actually, in the grand scheme of things, not too much different. But yeah, they've had a season, haven't they? Dreadful start. Didn't buy any players.
Smashed the Villa.
Yeah. And then they went on a run where you thought, oh, they'll be okay. And now they've just gone on that terrible run of death. Again, similar to your pick for Palace, getting like a gazillion points. The only way I could justify it is, I think attacking-wise, Iheanacho is playing, starting to form. I think, the days of Vardy are over. Age has caught up with him.
Mm-hmm.
You think, kind of Harvey Barnes, Maddison, if they get fit. They've got a very generous run of fixtures, really. In terms of their home games, they have, for example, they've got Bournemouth at home. In terms of a game, you'd expect them to get some points. They've got West Ham at home. They've got, I was going to say Liverpool, but I think Liverpool.
They've got Villa at home.
They got They got Villa at home. They got Everton at home. They've got teams. They got Wolves at home. I'm going to say in terms of. This is the exact reason last year I predicted Watford to stay up a notch, and that failed dreadfully. But home games, I think they've got a favourable set of fixtures. I think that will get them over the line. I don't think they'll do anything away, but they've got the teams below them, around them in the league. I mean, in terms of time of recording, they are 17th. The bottom 3, West Ham, Bournemouth, Southampton, they got 2 of them at home, and they got Everton who are 15th at time recording. That's the way I'm justifying them coming in 12th place. But the long-term future of Leicester, money's a struggle now. Rodgers is getting frustrated. Yeah, there might be one to watch for the wrong reasons next season.
I think those home games will be more of a hindrance than a help. If you've got a fan base that are already annoyed and are seeing if the fan base know they've hit the iceberg, or they can see the iceberg, maybe they can see the iceberg, or they've hit it and they know there's a bit of water coming in. If they go 1-0 down to any of those teams at home, they're in trouble. And if they get any players, if they get Maddison injured, they're in trouble, because Harvey Barnes hasn't been amazing this year.
Nope, that's true.
Tete, well, he scored against us.
Yep.
Iheanacho does well in spurts, but apart from that,
I think it's going to be a stumble.
they're not going to get anything away.
I mean, 39 would usually have you 17th in the league. I think it's more to do with the poorness of the rest of the league that they come that high. But 12th place. Have you got a overachieving team in 12th or an underachieving team?
I think in the grand scheme of things, when you look at where they were last season and where we predicted them to be, they're overachieving, but they won't be very happy. I think they're gonna drop off a bit because of the incidents at Old Trafford. But I've got Fulham to come 12th. I've got them to finish on 40 points, and that's only 9 points above the relegation zone, which I think is a disservice to them.
I'm going to say, in terms of the rest of the
probably
season...
about like half a point the rest of the season.
Would you like to hazard a guess how many points you've given Fulham for the rest of the season at time of recording?
6.
1.
Have I?
1 point. To be fair, if that turns out to be true, I'll eat my hat live on it. I mean, get the hats coming. If Fulham only get 1 point the rest of the season.
I just don't see them. I think they're going to struggle in a lot of games, and it'll take them a while to...
To put that down for a record, 1 draw, 10 losses, no wins is your prediction for the rest of the season.
Wow. And do you know what? I wouldn't put it past the team to do that.
You're going to stand by it. You double down.
Yeah, you know what? I got them coming 12th. Forget how many points they've got. Yep. I got them coming 12th.
Irrelevant.
I worry about them. They've had some great...
excellent start.
Yeah. Palina, whatever his name is, quality. You'll go on to a bigger team.
Pereira was a good signing as well. Have to admit that.
Yeah. I think Palina will end up at someone like a Liverpool or a Newcastle type of a, Pereira's been great. Mitrovic has obviously done decently for them.
Scored a couple.
Yeah, Bernd Leno has done better than...
Yep, solid. For that money, decent sign. You're very good signing for that money.
But the capitulation to Arsenal, I know Arsenal have been fantastic, but you didn't expect Fulham to fall away that quickly against them, in the first half hour or whatnot. And Odegaard's goal was a pure beauty. He had the freedom of bloody Craven Cottage.
I think that the Fulham defence fell away quicker than the live commentary on that game. I don't know if you're watching that game live.
No.
But they lost the link to the commentators. So they had the pundits in the studio trying to do the commentary. But they were at the other end of the pitch. So it was just a bit like, oh, there's a corner. Oh, there's a goal. Because they couldn't see what... Yeah, absolutely dreadful. But yeah, I mean,
the
I think...
goals were awful in that game as well. The header from Martinelli was the second goal. Was
not very
crap.
good. As mentioned, as you mentioned as well, the FA Cup quarterfinal, I think, is going to have a big impact on their season. Mm-hmm. I have them getting more than 1 point.
Well,
but that mid-table, I think the start of the season definitely would have taken it.
Well, considering we had them like 19th with 1 point at the start of the season.
Yeah, they're overachieved. They're probably not going down.
No, they won't go down. Well, they've done well.
39 points at time recording. I think that's enough to keep them up.
I think they'll have to watch themselves next season. But Marco Silva's done a great job.
Yep.
1 point in your next 10 games though, Marco. What are you playing at?
Patrick Vieira.
It's because of Mitrovic being out for 10 games, that's why.
That is true. To be fair, if he's out for 10 games, then they lose 10 games. I think that certainly adds up. But 13th place in the league. Predictions for the rest of the season. You've mentioned them already, slightly higher up the table. I've got Palace in 13th. Not on getting 20 more points. I've got them getting 12 more points, which maths will be able to tell you is equivalent to 4 wins. Again, I think, as touched upon when we talked about Palace earlier, I think Zaha getting fit, they got enough, I think, to get them away from the relegation zone. But I don't think it's going to... Well, I mean, they're away from the relegation zone now. But I don't think it's going to be a very good end, particularly. I don't think it's going to be a very exciting end to the season. For them, it's the summer. Who do they get next? Massive call. Brendan Rodgers. Who you got 13th?
Well, I'm just thinking about that Brendan Rodgers call. I don't think he goes there. I think they've got more chance of getting Mick McCarthy.
I don't know.
For me, a team... I can't believe I've got them 13. And I'm going to say this about pretty much every team. Carrying on now. I'm going to pretty much say I can't believe I've got them finishing here. I've got Leeds coming 13th.
Okay.
I think Javi Garcia has done well enough. I think he's going to have that buoyancy effect, like the win against Wolves at the weekend, played very well. They're getting goals. They've always been a good attacking team that can score goals.
Yep.
They do leak goals, but I don't think they'll leak as many. I think I put them down for a couple of 4-4 draws, if I'm completely honest with you. And I had them losing like 4-3 to Spurs at home, for example. Heung-min Son got none of those goals. But I think Leeds they've got a bit of that swagger back. They're very high tempo, they're a very fast team. Nonto has done very well. Somerville's done very well as well. Bamford starting to show signs that he could maybe score again.
Been injured a lot.
Yeah, he has. Melier has improved a little bit more recently after, we said last year that at the start of the season, becoming the youngest goalkeeper to get to 50 Premier League clean sheets seemed to weigh on his mind a lot. Leeds, I think, did the right thing in getting rid of Jesse Marsh.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of...
He celebrated a defeat to the Villa.
Yeah, in terms of even... If you could say he was accurate, in terms of very much, you don't get points for being right, even if you're saying he was right, which the Leeds fans at full time very much disagreed with him. But their style of play under Marsh was a bit like, at junior school, where you're playing football in the playground and everybody just chases the ball, regardless of that. So very good attacking, just dreadful defensively. I think bringing it back, comparing it to Villa, it's in a very different way, because I'm going to say when Tim Sherwood came in to replace Paul Lambert, it was just basically anybody else is going to make the difference. I mean, Lambert would never be known as an attacking manager with Villa, absolutely dreadful. But just because it was somebody else, and I am going to do a slight spoiler alert, because I don't think Leeds are going to go down based on my predictions. I think having somebody different is going to be enough to keep them up, and moving it on, because I've got Leeds in 14th. Okay. So I think in terms of...
How many points are they on at the moment, just out of interest?
Currently, at time recording, Leeds are 14th at time recording.
Yeah.
On 26 points.
I'm not going to tell you how many points they finish on.
In terms of... as I said, I've got them 14th. I've got them on 38 points.
Oh, I've got 39. Yeah.
So equivalent to 4 wins. I think they've got some fixtures at home, which I think will get them over the line.
The tempo that they play at will beat teams. They'll get that far ahead. And I think they'll have a lot of high-scoring games, where they'll go and score 3 or 4 goals, but they'll concede quite a few as well.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of some of the games they've got where I think they might pick up...
Got Southampton.
Some points. They've got Leicester at home. For example, in terms of... Funny enough, they got Liverpool at home. I think they'll get a point against a team like Liverpool, I think.
I've got them to lose 4-3, because I kept thinking of the Mark Viduka game where they won 4-3.
And they got Palace at home. They got Bournemouth away. They got... Well, then they've already played Wolves. They won. I think they've just... I don't think it'll be stylish, but yeah, I think they've just got enough. And you don't really need very much in this league to stay up. So 14th, I've got Leeds. Who have you got?
I got Bournemouth 14th.
Okay. I mean, you're all in on this Bournemouth train, because you did have them staying up.
I had 14th.
At the start of the season, yes. So you are committed to that 14th.
I've just seen a little bit from them. I mean, not the Villa game, but when they had a bit of grit about them. Arsenal, okay, they lost 3-2, but Arsenal are having a great season.
Yep.
They did so well to beat Liverpool 1-0.
Needed that win, really.
Yeah, they did. And I listened to it on the radio, and it was all Liverpool to start with, and then Billing goes and grabs a goal. Like with all of the other teams that I've got in the bottom half this season, to finish in the bottom half, I worry about them next season. Maybe Palace being the exception, and one other team if they don't go down, or 2 other teams if they don't go down.
I mean, they spent money in January on players for the future.
And they've done quite well, those players have. Atawa has been decent. Yeah. The other Jonathan has been decent. Solanke hasn't got goals for him.
Not really Premier League striker, I wouldn't say.
No, Billinger's got goals for them. He's stepped up. They played him up front quite a bit as well. David Brooks, lovely to see him back. Got a first half hat-trick against Portsmouth in the week as well, in the Senior Cup for the teams down south. If Bournemouth go down, I won't be surprised. However, I think that they'll do enough because of their small stadium, because of the noise they can generate in there, even though they've only got 14 fans, literally 14.
12 of them are in the away end.
And I think Gary O'Neill will get enough out of them, but he won't last much longer next year. Bournemouth for me.
At the start of the season, one of the biggest disagreements we had was about Bournemouth. We'll wait and see later on in the show how much we disagree about them still, in terms of where we're going. But I haven't got them 14th. In terms of 15th, again, last season, in an example of not predictions, but praise that has not aged well. Wolves last season, I had their previous manager of the season. I was waxing lyrical about how well they were doing. He got sacked fairly early on in the season. I think they actually scored negative goals. I think in the start of the season, that was how it was going. They got Julia Lopetegui in, very good manager, doing okay. I think in terms of they are outside of the relegation zone at time recording. They are 13th at time recording. So I've got them dipping slightly, but it's so tight kind of in there. Oh, yeah. I've got them...
There's like 3 points between them all.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I've got them on 35 points, which most other seasons would get you relegated, I think. So, funnily enough, another team who stayed up on 35 points, Aston Villa. But in terms of Wolves, they don't score enough goals. I don't think that's been really addressed, but in terms of a new manager comes in, the first thing you often do is just make sure you don't get beat. Just tighten up at the back. And since he's come in, their points per game ratio has them mid-table, which is acceptable to keep you up. And in terms of start of the season, I had them 9th, you had them 11th, so mid-table. Big summer again for them, like a lot of other teams. Jimenez, unfortunately, not understandably, not quite the player that he was before his injury. You struggle to see where they score goals. They, like a lot of teams in the league, they need a centre forward. At time of recording, they are one of the lowest scorers in the league, equal with a number of other teams on 22 goals.
One of the things for them is when Neves decides it's time to leave and Martinho decides, actually, I'm not going to stick around as well, which will happen in the same summer. I think.
I think Martinho might retire, and then Neves, again, you could see him going to Liverpool or somewhere like that.
United, something like that.
Yeah, I take him at Villa, 100%.
Oh, mate, too right. Quality player.
So I got Wolves 15th, just doing enough to get themselves over the line. I think they got Villa. They got Villa at home still to come.
Yep.
I think they'll draw.
I think we'll beat them.
They'll do. But 15th, who have you got coming 15th?
Well, it's funny because I've got the W as well. The W of West Ham.
Oh, no.
I think that West Ham have got the quality within their squad to just about get out of it.
Massive underachievers this season. I mean, in terms of... I had them 7th, you had them 9th.
Yeah. The only team that I think it has ever been said, I know there was Leeds as well, but particularly about West Ham, it was they're too good to go down, and then they did.
Yep. 42 points, one of the highest points totals to go down as well.
And I think this year it's very much the same. I think they get knocked out of Europe, and that's the catalyst for them to bounce back, because they've got a lot of very good players.
They do. They have good players.
Ben Rama, very good player on his day. Bowen hasn't hit the heights this season.
Coming into a little bit of form, but...
Fantastic goal scorer up front in Danny Ings when he finds his scoring boots for them, which he hasn't done yet, really.
Scored a couple, but yeah, there's still more to come.
But it was like a 4-0 win over Southampton. I think.
Did he score a couple when we beat Southampton 4-0 kind of last season?
Well, yeah, and look at that, Antonio, not there anymore.
Declan Rice has had a poor season by his standards, and Souček hasn't had a very good one either.
You think Rice is off in the summer?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's going to be big money still for him.
Yeah.
Lucas Paqueta has come in, Scamacca as well coming in.
Not lived up to it.
No, big money on players who aren't the West Ham bread and butter. I know there's the West Ham way, the passing and whatnot. But
yeah, I mean, I suppose in terms of Scamacca, they were thinking, oh, maybe we've got ourselves another Di Canio, but not quite.
No. Yeah, West Ham's come 15th, and I expect them to do a lot better next year, with or without Declan Rice, with or without David Moyes as well.
I mean, they got booed off when they played Villa.
He won't get sacked. I don't see him getting sacked.
They might give him the option to walk.
I think at the end of the season they might, but I think the fact that they're so close to European glory, like they were last year as well.
I don't think. I agree. They don't sack him now.
No, they keep a hold of him. But yeah, 15th for me. West Ham 35 points, finishing 4 points above the relegation zone. You're going to tell me that means that I've given them an extra 43 points?
Well, I would say in terms of the 4 points that you've got between 15th and 18th, that's the gap I've got between 15th and 18th. I've got 35 and 31.
Before you go on to your bottom five, though, we do need to discuss who's going to be coming up next season. I think we should do that before we say who's going to go down.
Yep.
So at the start of the season, we both said Burnley would come up because of how amazingly they played against Huddersfield. We'd seen that first championship match.
Yep.
Company, it seemed, was a revelation. He still seems to be a revelation, despite getting absolutely dicked by Manchester City the other week.
Yeah, not the first team, won't be the last.
The way they played against them, though, at times was very nice to see.
I mean, we have to big that up because that is probably one of the few things we got right
Yeah.
in terms of the predictions.
And I think Burnley, I said this to Jake, I went, if Burnley come up, they'll come about 14th, 15th next season because of the way that they're playing, because they'll be an unknown quantity because it's not Sean Dyche anymore.
Yeah, I think it depends who they bring in the summer as well.
Well, the likes of Matheson and those players that they've got in, and Harwood Bellis and Muric, I don't see them ever making it into the teams that their parent clubs. So they've got a good chance with them.
Yep.
I don't see. I mean, Company's Crystal Palace. He would be a great fit there, but the comments he made about the sacking of Vieira, I don't see that happening.
If you're Company and you're a team top of the Championship, who really
in the summer
at time recording you're expecting to win the league, I don't think you leave them for Palace, because I think because you get a team promoted.
I wouldn't at the moment.
I think you have a go.
I think
if
come
one
the
season
summer,
in the Premier League. I think in terms of the summer, I think he gets them promoted. You're like, okay, let's have a season. I do think that's linked to, as I said, they need a couple of players. I think if the chairman at Burnley turns round and goes, no cash in the pot, maybe
he's going to be sought after this summer, and Leicester and Palace are going to be sniffing around him.
Yeah, I think they'd certainly be interested. I mean, at time recording, Championship table, Burnley 16 points ahead of third. So
they're up, aren't they?
I think you roll. If I'm Company, I think they've lost 2 games this season out of 37. I think they have, just to complete the Burnley loving, they have only conceded 29 goals, which is the lowest in the Championship. They've scored 74, which is the most.
And fair play to Company that he's come to England and gone into one of the lower divisions.
Yeah.
It was a big gamble at Burnley going there, because he could easily have fallen flat on his face. Did he crap at Anderlecht? He
did okay.
Was he about 4th?
Yeah, 3rd. I think not great.
When they're the only team in that league, it's crap. But I think the other 2 teams that we said to come up were Norwich City. Yep. Because of Dino, and that's not the case anymore. They've now got the former Huddersfield manager.
Yep.
Can't remember his name.
Daniel Farker.
There you go. I thought it was that, but then I thought, no, it can't be. And then the last one we said, because of Chris Wilder, might I add, Aston Villa, Middlesbrough
Yep.
with Cameron Archer banging them in for him and Aaron Ramsey. Michael Carrick's done the same as Company. What a great way he's got them playing. A massive run of form. They were 17th, I think, when he took over.
Yep.
Carrick is going to be another sought after manager. I don't think he leaves, whereas I could see Company doing it. I don't think Carrick leaves. I think Middlesbrough get up still. Norwich, I don't think get up.
Yeah, at time recording, Norwich are 7th in the Championship, 3 points off 6.
They've been doing well, but I don't see them coming up. There's a lot of teams in there. It's like the relegation zone of the Premier League, isn't it? You look at Coventry, who are only 3 points off. You've got West Brom, who are up that end as well. But for me, and it's the same as last year, the team I want to see come up, and it would be marvellous if they did.
Yep.
Luton Town.
Yeah, I mean, 4th at time of recording.
And they've hardly lost any games.
They've lost 8 games in the league, which is the second lowest amount of games lost in the Championship, which, when you consider, we mentioned him earlier, Nathan Jones was former manager of Luton, left for a winter break, I suppose, of his own to go and join Southampton. The way they managed just to navigate that transition, unbeaten in the last 5 games, in terms of their defence, the 3rd best defence in the Championship. I mean, they don't score very many goals, particularly.
They finish rock bottom of the Premier League next season if they come up.
Yeah, but I think they would. But I think they're 100-odd million, kind of in terms of TV and then parachute and then all that.
I'm still not convinced they'd get as many points as Fulham get in these final 11 games.
Right, after 38. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the team that goes up from the Championship playoffs, and I haven't got the numbers in front of me, so I'm sure I'll be proved wrong. But I'd say usually 8 times out of 10 is the team with momentum going into the playoffs. The team who goes on that run.
You look at the Villa.
Before the end of the season. So it's not necessarily the team who comes third. Usually, if the team who comes third, a team who've been in the automatic promotion places for most of the season, and
they
then
drop
dip
right
out,
off, don't they?
then they don't usually go up. So I think in terms of Norwich, it depends on their run at the end of the season. If they sneak in, they got a chance, especially in terms of that time recording. We mentioned Middlesbrough. They are 3rd in the table, 3 points behind second, having played a game more.
They're coming second.
But you say, in terms of if they come second, Sheffield United come 3rd. They're the team, Sheffield United second at time recording. Yeah, you can see in terms of momentum shift there. And I think in terms of Sheffield United, obviously, they've had some dramas in the FA Cup. The Wrexham kind of hullabaloo. They weren't very impressed based on some of the comments of Billy Sharp in respect to the coverage. They then beat Spurs. They then come from behind against Blackburn to get themselves into the semi-finals.
To lose to Man City.
Well, unfortunately, their best players are from Man City, so they can't play. Doyle, for example. Whether that has an impact on them in the run-in to the end of the Championship season. But unlike some of our Premier League predictions, at least all our Championship ones are still in the running in terms of one way or another, which is, I'll
you're
take that.
Sticking with the same 3 teams?
In terms of, I think I'm Burnley 100%. Again, I think it depends on that second, third place dynamic. We're looking in terms of Norwich 7th, we mentioned, on 57, Coventry 7th on 57, West Brom 55, Watford 55, Sunderland 53, Preston 53. That is the top 12, realistically. You think those are the teams in a shout with the playoffs?
Norwich won't come up because Fulham aren't going down and they've got a job share.
That is true. It's like a timeshare. You only get like 1 week a year, kind of in the same place.
Borough come second.
To be fair, would make us both right in terms of Borough, so I'm pleased with that. Sod it. I'm sticking with Norwich.
Okay.
Sod it. Let's do it. Let's pin my colours.
Norwich versus Luton in the final.
Yeah, this sinking ship. Let's stick ourselves to it. I'm going for it. Who have you got in terms of your 3 for the Championship? Are you sticking or are you twisting?
Burnley, Borough and Luton.
There you go. I mean, Luton, I went there when we played.
Luton to come up.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you clamber over a garden to get there. I went there when we played them in the League Cup and lost. Can't be any worse than that, really. But speaking of things that can't be any worse than that, it comes to the bottom 5 of the Premier League. And we'll revisit our predictions. Start of the season, you had Leeds, Brentford, Southampton, Fulham, Forest.
Yeah.
I had Forest, Brentford, Leeds, Fulham, Bournemouth. So 16th, your Leeds are off the board
Yeah.
on your predictions. Who have you got nestling into their place?
I said at the time, the first team to sack their manager would feel the full force of the Sean Dyche effect, and because of that, they would stay up. I've got Everton to stay up. I don't think they're going to do amazingly, though. When I tell you how many points they finish on, they probably do amazingly. They'd probably win like La Liga with it. Firepower's their problem. Firepower is their massive problem. I think they're going to have to share the goals around a bit, and they're going to have to rely on some 1-0 wins here and there.
Damari Gray's going to have to get a couple, I think.
Yeah, like after they beat Arsenal at home, they can do it. They can dig their heels in. They can do well, but then they'll go and lose 2-0 to us.
Yep. It's funny enough. I do think home form will keep them up.
I think they'll have enough. I think they'll go. They're the type of team that will go and win a game 1-0 hard fought against Tottenham, but then go and get spanked 3-0 by Man United.
Yeah, but I think it's such a tight league at the bottom. Just that one win out of 2 is. I mean, I don't think they're going to win half their games, but cutting to the chase, I have Everton 16th as well.
Okay. How many points have you got Everton on?
I've got them on 33. So
I've got 34.
I think it's going to be close. I mean, they're not covering themselves in glory,
No.
but I have them 16th. I agree in terms of, for my predictions for the rest of the season, you mentioned firepower. I have them as the second lowest scorers in the league. Next season, I mean, they've spent like so much. Again, the team has spent so much money and have got massively worse over the last few years. You have to say you don't really hold out too much hope for them next season because where's the investment? But yeah, as you say, Sean Dyche,
Second lowest scorers, yeah.
so I think that will just be enough to keep them up, not through any glory, but definitely take 16th. 17th, we both had Brentford. They're not coming 17th. We haven't got to come in 17th. I think it's not quite mathematically possible for them to come 17th, but it's not going to happen. This is, the first of the winners of not coming in the bottom 3. I'm going to say, on my prediction table, I have 17th and 18th on the same number of points. So I have goal difference.
Blinking heck.
Yeah, deciding who goes down. And I'm really disappointed with who I've got going down. But before that, 17th, who you got?
Well, I've got them finishing 1 point above the relegation zone. And as you can see so far, things aren't looking good for the Midlands with mine. However, surprisingly, considering where I had them finish at the start of the season, Robin Hood saves the day, and Nottingham Forest it's the team that you wanted to keep up, I reckon. I reckon you haven't done. Yeah. Nottingham Forest, who I said at the time deserved to go down because they don't have a sponsor. Yeah. I think that
I was the sponsor. I was the one sponsoring their endeavours.
I think their home form. I know that they've got Arsenal at home and Man United at home.
They got good home form,
and I think they're going to get spanked in every away game. Who, ironically, against Crystal Palace, and that's why Crystal Palace gets so many points. I think that they'll do enough at home against the teams that they've got to stay up, and we've derisory 32 points. Yeah. I've got Nottingham Forest finishing there. I think they've found a niche at home, and we putting Johnson up front. It's been a bit of a stroke of luck. Kane Navas is still a very good goalkeeper as well. Yep. They'll just about do it by the skin of their teeth.
What I'm going to call as the game that is going to decide Forest season is actually their next game.
Mm-hmm.
They got Wolves at home.
They beat Wolves 1-0.
They did.
1-0.
I got that as a draw. they need if they beat Wolves, I'll say it because in terms of you probably predicted what's happening next. If they beat Wolves, they stay up because you mentioned in terms of their other home games the rest of the season. Man United, as you mentioned, at home. They got Brighton at home. They've got Southampton at home. That's kind of their only gimme because then they've got Arsenal at home. So home form is their strength, and they got some really tough home games coming up. So I think they need, if they get, they need a couple of those games which you don't think they're going to win to win. 17th, I got West Ham. Got a goal difference. Funnily enough, in terms of the last game of the season, Palace are at home to Forest. Leicester are at home to West Ham. I have Palace to beat Forest and Leicester to beat West Ham. So I think both teams are going to be in a relegation battle, the final game of the season. West Ham massively underachieved this season. We said earlier, I think Moyes is going to go at the end of the season. They'll keep him for the rest of it. I don't want West Ham to stay up. I mean, in terms of, I would love to be a situation where Forest stay up to relegate West Ham because, as you mentioned, there's nothing funnier than getting actually, no, I say that. The only thing funnier than West Ham going down is Newcastle going down. and on the basis it's not going to be Newcastle this season. I'd love West Ham to go down, but I have to respect the rules of the supercomputer. When I went through it, not looking at the table, goal difference, West Ham, which linking on, I've got Forest going down on goal difference. I'd say big games for them. They've got Wolves at home. They've got Brighton at home. If they win them, they stay up. And in terms of, I had them staying up, as you mentioned at the start of the season. I had them coming 16th. So for my own pride, considering how some of my other predictions have gone in the fire, this was one of my because I remember you couldn't believe it when I had Forest staying up, and now you can't believe that you've got them staying up and I've got them going down. So I hope both of us are right. I hope Forest stay up. I mean, they have used 85 players during the course of the season. I mean, I think they've got it's the amount of players they got at the City Ground is equivalent to a picket line. The amount of kind of players in a small space. I hope they stay up. I think the home form, as you said, that will keep them up if they get a couple of results that you don't expect them to. I mean, I don't want to talk about it going down because I don't want them to go down. So I'm going to go straight away to your 18th that you've got. Who have you got occupying that first or final, depending on what way you look at it, relegation spot?
Well, I feel a bit stupid because of how you said that they've done and how they've been doing points-wise recently. However, I really worry about them as a team in whole. They've got a fantastic goalkeeper, a couple of fantastic central midfielders, but I've got Wolves to come 18th, and I'm completely shocked that I've got them 18th. Yeah. I said not that long ago that there will be at least one shock team that goes down this season because you look at the teams who are down there at the moment and who are in the bottom three and the ones who are in the bottom 9 that can go down. The two that wouldn't shock you are probably Forest and Bournemouth. And so one other team would be a big shock to go down. I mean, Wolves going down. I've got 3 really now. Wolves, I think, will go down. They don't have enough in the locker.
Lack of goals.
Yeah, and I don't think that they will get the wins. I think they'll lose to us. I think they'll lose to Forest. I think they'll get a few draws here and there. And Lopetegui, yeah, great manager, very good. He'll get them straight back up, But
if they stay up, it's because of him.
Yeah, but they just don't. They haven't got the gel. They ain't got it. Wolves, really sorry, but I think their time in the Premier League comes to an end, and I really hope it ain't at the expense of their noisy neighbours down the road, So
what a switch that would be.
Oh, I'd hate it. Wolves 18th for me.
19th, we both had Fulham 19th before the start of the season. That's not happening. So we're going to go into the well again for who we think is going to come 19th. And we mentioned it earlier in terms of Forest was one team where we disagreed on quite a lot before the start of the season. Mm-hmm. The other team we disagreed on quite a lot where they'll come was Bournemouth. You've got them staying up. I've got them going down. in terms of, I think the Liverpool win, great win for them. They needed the win. I just don't think Bournemouth are very good. I mean, there's evidence. I mean, they played okay against Villa, to be fair, and it was only, I think it was a bit like, it's like if the the tortoise and the hare. It's like if the hare had looked over his shoulder at any point and just gone, oh shit, let's just run over the line. That was Villa against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
It's like, I think Bournemouth, they played decent in patches against us, so I don't think they were like terrible and rubbish. We go to the last 10 minutes and we're like, yeah, we need a couple of goals here, get it done, bang. I just don't think they're that good. I didn't think they were good before the start of the season. I don't think Gary O'Neill is particularly good.
I think it's fair enough.
Manager at time recording, Fulham not Fulham, Bournemouth are 19th at time recording. I just don't think they got
On how many points?
24 at time
Oh
recording.
shit! I got them to get 15 points. Oh, that's ridiculous.
But I've got them to get 5 the rest of the season. So I got Bournemouth 19th, 29 points, only 2 points from my safety net of 17th. So not a huge difference in it, but yeah, I think Liverpool dreadful rather than Bournemouth being particularly good. And in terms of their games at the end of the season, I mean, last game of the season, Bournemouth are away at Everton.
Could be a big one.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that is going to be a game that will potentially decide who goes down. But Sean Dyche, as you mentioned, the home game, I think that is enough. I think they'll get it done. I mean, they got Man United at home. I think
I'll
they'll
put
lose.
Bournemouth to beat Everton.
That would be the difference. I mean, in terms of they've got like Chelsea still to play. I mean, it's such a fine margin. They've got Southampton away. I think Southampton will beat them. But they're 19th in my table. Who's in your 19th spot? Because you need a replacement for Fulham as well.
Well, I do, and it's in you. It's probably as bad as Liverpool coming fourth, but you open up a packet and it's half full, mate. This is completely empty. Leicester City, I've got to come 19th, and I know it seems like what? That's that's a bad season for the Midlands, apart from the Villa. Leicester, I've got them really floundering. I know that they do have those attacking players, but I just don't think they've got enough about them. And as I said before, you go to their stadium and you get a head against them.
Morale's not good.
Nah, they're going to turn, and the fans will want better. They drop down. I've not been impressed really by their signings. Harry Suter is meant to be great. They did well when they beat us, of course, But if we hadn't have been just trying to play out from the back and we'd have maybe made those few passes to Kamara a little bit differently, they don't beat us on that game. I genuinely think we go and beat them.
Well, we shot ourselves in both feet and then in the back just to make sure.
Not to forget, we had a goal disallowed against them. I'm sure we hit the woodwork against them as well. They're not all that. They've got some very good players, but some of those very good players, as you say, will not be there next year. Vardy will go. Tielemans will be off.
Yep.
And a few of the others will be gone as well. Their goalkeeper's bloody awful. I've got Leicester to come 19th.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in terms of there's a lot of issues for them in the summer next season. I've got them staying up, not through particularly glorious means, but yeah, I mean, they're a team at time recording, they're in 17th. They haven't won in 5, they lost 4 on a bounce.
How many points are they on the moment?
They're on 25.
At the getting 5 more.
So, as you said, their home form will make or break them. As I agree in terms of the fans are not going to be particularly sympathetic with their current predicament, and it doesn't look like Brendan Rodgers is either. So, bottom of the league. If you've been keeping a tally, you will know who we both have.
Yeah, but which one of us had them in the relegation zone at the start of the season?
You probably guessed by now it wasn't me, but yeah, so we both now agree with the team who are going to come bottom.
Told you.
I mean, you did predict that Southampton would be relegated.
I said they would go marching into the Championship.
Yeah, I mean, I had faith in youth. Misplaced youth. I mean, misplaced faith, I should say. And the Nathan Jones experiment. If they go down, yeah, they'll just point to that and go, yeah, what was going on there? I mean, in terms of, we've both got them bottom, so we'll do a point comparison. I mean, I haven't got them going down by much. I've only got them going down by 3 points, because I've got them on 28.
I've got 126 going down by 6.
So at time of recording, Southampton are bottom on 23. So I've only got them going 5 points.
Well, they get 3 points.
More. But, yeah.
Palace have got to get their points somewhere. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, they've had some decent results. They got a draw away at Old Trafford. Last game of the season, they have Liverpool at home, which my boys will get the win to get them coming fourth.
Liverpool are going to thump them 7 or 8-0.
I think if they're already down. I mean, I think in terms of they got Brighton away before then.
Brighton are going to thump them as well.
So, yeah, they got some difficult games.
Arsenal? No,
they got Fulham at home, which you'd think would be the game they really need to win. They got, Forest away.
They'll lose.
So, yeah, I think they got Newcastle away. They've got Bournemouth at home, which I think they'll win. I think that's their only win for the rest of the season. Arsenal away, Palace at home. So, I mean, in terms of if you were a Southampton fan, there is room for optimism. They got West Ham away next game. There is room for optimism as a Southampton fan. You could say there's not a lot of difference between bottom and 17th. A couple of wins, but we're not Southampton fans, and we think they're going down. So
I think you've got optimism if you're not a Southampton fan, pretending you are one, looking at the games that they've got left. If you're a Southampton fan, you've got no optimism because they haven't been that great. Okay, they got the result at Man United. They got the win at Chelsea. Brilliant, well done. But every team that goes down goes and picks up 2 good results in the season. James Ward-Prowse, fantastic servant for them. He probably stays in the Championship unless they absolutely have to sell him because a big money bid comes in.
If Leicester stay up, I can see that them going for him.
West Ham to replace Declan Rice.
Yep.
Sells, they're very high on there. Obviously, the manager. They've got a lot of good young players. Bazunu, we know that our Irish mates like him as a goalkeeper, and he does all right from time to time, but he lets too many in.
I don't think they get relegated because of him.
No, but when you look at the fact that, as far as I'm aware, Liveramento's been out all season.
Yep.
Walker Peters has been in and out of the team. He, struck the post against United. They, in all fairness, they should have beat United with that effort and with the Ward-Prowse free kick that hit the bar.
Yep.
They just don't have anything in attack. And if they'd have brought in Danny Ings, any of those bottom teams that have brought in Danny Ings that have stayed up, that's what will keep West Ham up. Not just because of his goals, but because of his goal contributions.
Yep.
Southampton.
There we go. I think it's going to be tight at the bottom, but as things stand in terms of the supercomputer, we're having to admit that you were right, kind of so far. But I think in terms of the remainder of the predictions we made that we haven't touched upon, probably bring us back down to earth. In terms of the League Cup, you had Villa, I had Spurs, didn't happen. FA Cup, you had Spurs, I had Chelsea.
Didn't happen.
Yep, didn't happen. I think in terms of the Golden Glove, you had Lloris. I had Edison. At time of recording, the team with the...
Be Newcastle, wouldn't it?
It is Newcastle currently with 19. Then City are second in terms of goals conceded.
I've got that on here. I've got Newcastle to concede 29 and City to concede 34. And Edison hasn't had a great season, by all accounts. Saying that, I think there's going to be a lot of goals this year. And 2 teams that I've got in the bottom, and this is worse than your Liverpool call, I've got on 60 goals scored. The problem is that both of them let in over 70. And that's Leicester. I've got them letting in 80. They're going to have to score 100 goals as well, which is the stupid thing. I've got Leeds to get 60 but letting 75 because they just ship them and Leicester will ship them. There's a lot of
goals against my bottom three. Wolves letting 70, Southampton letting 80 as well, Forest letting 76, and you go up to the other end of the table, I've got Manchester City scoring 111. Who on earth do they think they are? But then again, with Erling Haaland, anything is possible.
So I had 111, he probably scored 90 of them. I haven't got quite as many goals free-flowing in my predictions.
Mate, you want to watch my Premier League then, let me tell you.
Well, I'm going to say, I've got Bournemouth as having the worst defence, and I have City as having the best attack, which I suppose is not massively controversial in terms of picks for those particular aspects, which probably is a contrast for a lot of our other picks that we've just gone through. Plenty of controversy going on in terms of the season so far and the rest of the season to come, and you can keep right on top of our delete as applicable, insight, foresight, Nostradamus abilities, nonsense on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, where we focus on the Villa mainly, but we will be checking in time to time on our predictions, especially if they look like they're going to be right. But mainly we will be keeping you up to date with all the latest Villa news, predictions, previews, reviews, everything else you need to know about what's going on at Villa Park. Even during this international break, we'll keep you up to date with what's going on with all the Villa players representing their national teams and those staying at home. We mentioned Tyrone Mings nominated for Player of the Month. He's got to get his suit ready. He's got to get it pressed to see if he's going to be in that conversation, that winner, to put that trophy on his mantelpiece. And you can listen to our audio podcasts during that time on our podcast providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, our YouTube channel, where you can just watch blank screen our names, or you can pick up some ones where you can actually see our visages, or you pick some ones. We've had some interviews in the past, we've had some guests on our previous episodes. You can immerse yourself in memory lane if you want to. But in terms of upcoming things to look forward to, we will be back in the run-up to Chelsea away on the 1st of April. We will be giving our preview, and we'll dip in on Brighton. Not Brighton. Maybe we will Brighton. Maybe we both love Brighton. But we'll be looking back at Bournemouth. You would have forgotten about it by then. That's why we remind you. We won 3-0.
You forgot about it.
I mean, it was that unbelievable. I think it's the biggest home win under Unai Emery.
Yeah.
So John McGinn played very well. So no doubt we will bring you right up to date again, because you might have forgot. We might throw in an England comment or two. But until next time, and before I pass you over to Mr. Trinity himself for his final thoughts, hope you've enjoyed our magical mystery tour of the Premier League and all things beyond. We're back again with you soon, talking about all things Villa. Cheers for listening. Bye for now.
As per always, cheers, Tar. Thank you very much for listening to us on all of those podcast providers, or listening to us on YouTube. You'll have a lovely picture all the way through of some Premier League players with Unai Emery at the very front, because obviously we're a Villa podcast, so why wouldn't we? But, yeah, are we going to be right? Are we going to be wrong? Is it going to be a horrible day for the Midlands come the end of the season? And how happy are we going to be as Villa fans? Liverpool actually going to finish fourth, and a Crystal Palace going to end up winning all of the points.
20 points.
This season. Which is worse? Which is a worse prediction? I know the answer to it. It's Liverpool. But anyway, until next time, he is Brighton, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Arsenal, Villa. Am I missing anybody else?
I like Brentford.
He likes Brentford, likes Real Madrid until he dies. I'm Villa till I die. Remember, we've got Super Unai Emery. Next year, we're going to win the Premier League. Yep. This is Talk of the Trinity. We will see you next week. Up the Villa.